Chapter 1166. 1,000 kilometers to the north of the Sea of Reincarnation. The supreme immortal blade was unleashed. Terrifying divine might filled the air. Raging waves surged, and gigantic waves soared to the heavens. The great battle was about to begin. In front of him, the moon devil divine sword manifested in Ning Chen's hand. The inverted moon and water reappeared, and devilish energy surged wildly. Outside the battle, Xiao Xiao secretly raised her demonic energy. She looked at the two people in the battle, and her killing intent was not concealed in the slightest. The four supreme experts of the current younger generation gathered together. The atmosphere of the battle was heavy, and it was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. An unsuppressible killing intent pierced through the clouds, and it stirred up raging waves. In Ness Yao's hand, the supreme immortal light shone brightly. Wherever the divine might passed, the heavens and earth would collapse. With a single step, his figure flashed forward. His sword was fast and heavy, and the tip of his sword broke through the past. Heroes once cherished each other, and today, they faced each other in life and death. Ness Yao's heart was filled with hatred. He hated his own ignorance, hated his own powerlessness. The divine sword slashed down, splitting the clouds and splitting the ocean. The extremely terrifying divine might surpassed the limits of the world. And it reappeared the might of the four ancient swords. Ning Chen swung his sword, and his divine artifact blocked the divine sword. With a loud bang, the two strongest divine artifacts in the world clashed. An intense shockwave violently spread out. Raging waves rushed towards the sky, and rain poured down. 12 styles of spiritual rhino, sky-raising waterfall. In close proximity, the 9 king pearls spun rapidly and devilish energy filled his body. Ning Chen's supreme art, the secret art of the moon-worshipping clan, reappeared. In an instant, the sky-raising waterfall surged upwards, striking towards the king of rising sun in front of him. Great sun forbidden art Sunfall. The sky-raising waterfall assaulted him. Ness Yao activated the forbidden art at the same time, and the three-legged golden crow behind him screeched towards the sky. A divine sun descended, forcefully blocking the incoming attack. Boom! A world-shaking tremor resounded. Water and fire collided, and terrifying heat waves frantically surged out in all directions. The entire surface of the sea began to tremble as well. You have indeed changed. You have become cold and heartless. Ning Chen clenched his fist. Devilish energy surged, and he threw a punch. In order to kill you, I am willing to fall into the abyss forever. Lung Xian's eyes were cold, and his sword was cold. With a flip of his palm, Ness Yao raised a golden flame, directly blocking the former's heavy punch. Great Sun Forbidden Art. It was a completely different new realm, moving the heavens and earth with yin and yang. Behind Ness Yao, the three-legged golden crow wings flapped, and the divine flames of the sun incinerated the heavens and boiled the seas. In an instant, the entire sky above the sea region was filled with golden flames, turning into a sea of golden flames. Judgment of the King of Hell's third watch, Avicii Heaven wails. Ning Chen's expression hardened as he turned his sword around to face the King of Hell. Third night judgment. In an instant, the sky darkened, and the rain continued to fall. Ghostly cries rang out, as if hell had descended, and evil ghosts were everywhere. Extreme yin and extreme yang techniques collided with each other in the heavens and the earth, causing rumbling sounds to resound throughout the universe. The sun and moon changed and gods and ghosts wept sorrowfully. After the extreme collision, two muffled groans rang out. In the aftermath of the violent collision, the two figures flew back several feet, and the corners of their mouths were dyed red. The surging waves did not stop for a long time. It was like two people in a decisive battle. As long as their hatred was not extinguished, the battle would not stop. The figure dashed out, and the might of the immortal sword broke through the sky and the sea. The rising Sun King, whose cultivation and battle intent had reached the peak of his life, attacked with a move that could destroy the heavens and the earth, and the sea water within 10,000 miles flowed backward. The two swords clashed again. The might of the swords shook the 9 prefectures. They gave up on the extravagance and returned to the original sword moves. Each and every one of them was merciless and took lives. When they fought again after a year, with the assistance of the 9 king pearls, Ning Chen's strength was similarly stronger than before. With the Moon Devil Divine artifact in hand, he did not fear the end immortal edge in the slightest. The two swords stirred up raging waves, and their extreme might shook the yin and yang. The battle reached its climax, and the brilliance around the two people was dazzling. 12 styles of spiritual rhino, splitting the sea and splitting the flood. Amidst the raging waves, Ning Chen executed his ultimate technique. In an instant, the raging waves separated, and an incomparably surging force broke through the heavens. Ha! Facing the incoming attack, Ness Yao did not retreat a single step. He gathered his energy with a heavy punch, and met the incoming attack head-on. The two techniques collided, and rumbling sounds rang out. The impact of the true essence caused the two people's clothes to flutter. Their crowns shattered, and their long hair fluttered wildly. In the battle that was hard to determine the victor, the two people's bodies were greatly exhausted. The aftermath of the battle added to their injuries. Outside the battle, Xiao Xiao and Wanner watched the intense battle in front of them, and shock flashed past their eyes. The two people were not the strongest successors of imperial bloodlines. However, when compared to the successors of imperial bloodlines, the strength of these two people far surpassed them. Their astonishing growth that surpassed the limits of their bloodlines. These two people were terrifying to the point of frightening. Even when the various emperor-level experts were young, they were probably only at this level. While the two heavenly fox maidens were shocked, the battle in front of them became even more intense. Divine swords and divine artifacts clashed, and ear-piercing sounds rang out. 3 styles of absolute yang, Sai of the universe. Pushing to the limit, the sword raised a divine sun, and Ness Yao held his sword horizontally. Dense demonic energy roared and surged, and the power to split the heavens and earth apart dyed the entire world gold. It was a move that had never been seen before, and its might was shocking. Ning Chen's expression turned serious. With a clench of his left hand, the wild bone blade materialized. The blade and sword struck out together, each with a sharp glint. The brilliance of the two heavens and earth shone, illuminating thousands of miles of the sea. Boom! The divine weapons clashed, and the aftermath of the clash was chaotic. The blade and sword blocked the divine sword, and sorrowful cries resounded endlessly. The divine sword had a spirit, and it had never been seen before. The blade and sword resonated together, and it was difficult to fight against it. Hearing the sound of the sword, Ning Chen's expression changed slightly. He swung his sword to avoid the battle, and his figure retreated 300 meters away. Not good. The celestial ending sword was too strong. Though the water-moon reversal was a divine artifact, it was still slightly inferior when compared to it. However, this place was not too far away from the primordial devil region. If he were to rashly use the celestial execution and celestial entrapment swords, and attracted the attention of the two devil emperors, the consequences would be unimaginable. Since he could not use the two divine swords, he could only end this battle quickly, and end this battle before the water-moon reversal reached its limit. Thinking up to this point, Ning Chen took a step forward. The sword intent around his body rose to its limits, and an endless sword pressure filled the air, engulfing the entire battle. The sword realm reappeared and the heavens and earth changed color. Abnormally terrifying sword waves surged within the small world. And gradually, peace returned. Within the sword realm, a plain-clothed figure stood in the air. Her white hair fluttered, and she looked like the Emperor of Swords, causing all swords to submit to her. The sword realm opened, and the battle changed once again. Ness Yao's expression sank, and he circulated the true energy in his body, shielding the energy of the small world outside. This should be the final killing move of the person in front of him. Once this realm was broken, this battle would come to an end as well. 3 styles of absolute yang. The divine sword was raised to the heavens, and the 3-legged golden crow let out a long cry. In the blink of an eye, the 3-legged golden crow entered the divine sword, boosting its might to its limits. Pushing his limits to his limits, the skin around Ness Yao began to crack. A bloody mist exploded, and fresh blood dyed his body red. Divine flames gathered, and the divine sword's brilliance pierced through the heavens and earth. A might that could shock the heavens and make ghosts and deities weep constantly battered the surrounding sword realm. Terrifying tremors resounded, and the sword realm trembled, as though it could collapse at any moment. Nirvana. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. He took a step forward, and swung his sword, absorbing the countless sword intents that surged within the sword realm. With his ultimate move in hand, 10,000 swords lined up. In the next moment, the 10,000 swords pierced through the air. The incomparably magnificent sword energy drew out dazzling trajectories within the sword realm, and it was dazzling. The 10,000 swords arrived, but Ness Yao did not dodge at all. The celestial ending sword that pierced through the heavens and earth slashed towards him, forcefully breaking through the incoming attack. A heaven-shaking boom shook the heavens and earth. The two ultimate sword moves collided, and the aftershocks caused the sword realm to collapse, shattering into pieces. Outside the battlefield, when Xiao Xiao and Wan'er saw this, they regained their senses from their shock. Their figures flashed out, and they retreated 1,000 meters away. The aftershock struck, and furious waves surged. Waves of fire fell into the sea, and white mist rose. The terrifying heat caused the entire battlefield to become even more stifling. Drip. Suddenly, the sound of blood falling into the sea could be heard. It was so soft, yet it clearly entered the ears of everyone present. In the battlefield, blood dyed the arm of a white-clothed figure. The might of a divine sword could not be blocked by a divine artifact. On the inverted water moon, cracks appeared. Evidently, it had already reached its limit, and it could collapse at any moment. Outside the battlefield, Xiao Xiao narrowed her eyes, and a cold intent flashed past her eyes. After creating so many miracles, this time, he was finally going to be defeated. At the side, a worried expression flashed past Wan'er's face. Even with the hatred of her clan's extermination, the worry in her heart was hard to suppress. Wan'er, get ready to snatch the sword at any moment. Xiao Xiao looked at the battlefield ahead and transmitted her voice. Amen. Wan'er silently nodded in response. The battle was coming to an end, and the outcome was about to be decided. The divine artifact shattered, and the situation of the battle quickly changed. There's nothing I can do. With a sigh of helplessness, Ning Chen clenched his right hand. Suddenly, the wind and clouds above the 9 heavens changed color. Boom! The divine sword was about to appear, and heaven and earth resonated. Wind and thunder roared in the 9 heavens, and the heavy might attracted countless gazes. What a terrifying scene! Was a supreme treasure appearing? In the battlefield, the 4 origins of water, fire, wind, and thunder appeared together. The image of chaos appeared, and the scene of the primordial beginning reappeared. Ha! With a long shout, his white hair was wild. Blood mist rose around Ning Chen's body. On his right arm, a green and red longsword spread out. The natal dual cultivation sword reappeared, and its might shook the heavens. Boom! The sword reforged by the undying origin, transcending the cycle of reincarnation. Heaven and earth could not tolerate it. Above the 9 heavens, lightning fell, wanting to destroy the divine sword. Noisy. Ning Chen frowned and met it with his sword. With a rumble, the sword light broke through the lightning, and the sword momentum did not decrease, soaring into the sky. The sword entered the thundercloud, and the sword broke the sky. The thundercloud instantly collapsed and dissipated. With the appearance of the natal sword, the 4 origins surged around Ning Chen's body. The shocking might was not inferior to the immortal ending sword at all. After accumulating the sword for several years, it soared into the sky. Ning Chen's body moved, and the sword moved. Wind and thunder shook the world. Ness Yao narrowed his eyes and met it with his divine sword. With a rumble, a huge force came from his arm, and he took half a step back. At the same time, in the ancestral grounds of the heavenly devil, the 2 devil emperors opened their eyes and looked in the direction of the sea of reincarnation. What a powerful sword pressure! The 13th brother was actually hiding such a powerful force. In the 9 underworlds king's manor, within the surging devilish energy, Xian Jiuyo looked at the battlefield in the distance, and his concern could not be concealed. Divine swords were far beyond the mortal world. Although his disciple's strength was extraordinary, facing the might of a divine sword, could he win this battle? 1,000 li to the north of the sea of reincarnation, the sounds of battle could be heard. The sword condensed from the undying source, and the world-suppressing treasure of the ancient immortal world collided. Heaven and earth began to collapse and turn into nothingness. Outside the battlefield, Xiao Xiao looked at the battlefield, and the killing intent in her eyes grew stronger. One, prepare to attack. Xiao Xiao transmitted her voice and said solemnly. Your opponent is the Lord of Sunrise Royal City. Remember, you only have one chance. You must not hold back. When Wan'er heard this, her body trembled, and she nodded lightly. In the battlefield, both of them had raised their strength to the limit. Just as the final move was about to be executed and the outcome was decided, outside the battlefield, Xiao Xiao's eyes shone brightly, and she transmitted her voice. Now, when her voice fell, Xiao Xiao's figure moved, and she quickly rushed towards the battlefield. The 9 white tails behind her had turned completely black. Chapter 1167. 500 kilometers to the north of the Sea of Reincarnation. The battle between the two swords gradually came to an end. Just as the two were about to make their final moves, and the victor was decided, Xiao Xiao, who had been observing the battle from outside, made her move. The 9 black and white tails were ice-cold and glaring. In the blink of an eye, she arrived in the middle of the battle. The cold black demonic energy surged violently. The full-powered palm strike of the Fox Clan's Saintess was directed toward Ji Ming's back. At the same time, behind King Rising Sun, Wan'er's figure silently arrived as well. A world-shaking palm strike suddenly struck out. Caught off guard, Ji Ming and Yao Yao, whose attention was focused on their opponents, were unable to react in time. However, when the heavy palm strike landed on them, the corners of their mouths turned red, and fresh blood dyed their bodies. The divine sword left his hand, and Yao Yao's body fell from the sky, falling straight into the sea below. His fate was unknown. You too. In the sky, Ningchen staggered and stabilized his body. Suddenly, his chest felt stuffy, and he once again vomited out a mouthful of blood. Xiao Xiao frowned. Looking at the strange light lingering around the former's back, a cold light flashed past her eyes. What was that? Earlier, at the last moment, she clearly sensed that the strength of her palm strike had weakened by a lot. Pay with your life for my clansmen. With the divine sword in hand, killing intent filled the sky. Xiao Xiao took a step forward, and the flames of hatred burned the heavens. On the other side, Wan'er suppressed the sorrow in her heart. The 9 white tails behind her danced, and demonic energy surged, piercing through the heavens and earth. Between the two girls, Ningchen barely stabilized his body. Under the full-powered palm strike of the Fox Clan's Saintess, the divine seal protecting his back gradually collapsed. The sudden change caught him off guard. Ningchen raised his hand to wipe off the blood at the corner of his mouth. Looking at the two of them, the shock in his eyes was hard to conceal. Kill. The aura of the black demonic fox had completely changed. Xiao Xiao swung her sword, and immortal might filled the air, overturning the heavens and earth. Ningchen calmed himself down. He swung the origin sword in his hand, and took the incoming attack head-on. Thunderous rumbles shook the world. The immortal might of the 4 extreme essences shook the heavens and earth, resounding throughout the universe. The aftermath of the impact aggravated the injuries in his body. The corner of Ning Chen's lips once again turned red, and his injuries worsened. What are you hesitating for? Don't you want to take revenge for your clansmen? Xiao Xiao shouted angrily when she saw her younger sister, who had yet to make a move. Hearing this, Wan'er's body trembled violently. A moment later, she calmed down and no longer hesitated. Her figure flashed as she rushed into the battle. The heaven-shaking palm slammed down with the force of raging waves. The 9-tailed fairy's imperial might was shocking. Ning Chen's left palm activated the Qilin's supreme art. The 9 heavens star-picking hand reappeared, shaking the stars in the sky. The 2 palms collided, and the remaining energy roared out. Ning Chen, who was heavily injured, was at a disadvantage. Today, I will make you pay for the blood of my people. Hatred filled her heart, and the might of her immortal sword grew even stronger. Xiao Xiao turned into a vengeful black fox. Her sword was incomparably sharp, and her palms were merciless. Amidst the storm-like attacks, Ning Chen's figure moved erratically. He gripped the air with his left hand and the black saber appeared again. The saber and sword moved in tandem as they blocked the attacks of the 2 white fox fairies. After exchanging several blows, Rumbling noises rang out incessantly. The fox race's fairies were hard to come by in 1,000 years. Now that they had all appeared, their power was enough to kill gods. On the other hand, knowing Destiny's state was severely injured and could not exert his full strength, he was gradually at a disadvantage. Boom! The immortal sword and the heavy palm struck him again. Ning Chen's saber and sword collided with the two forces. With a shocking sound, he was forced back several steps, and his arms were dyed red. The situation of his defeat gradually became clear. Ning Chen raised his hand to wipe off the blood at the corner of his mouth, but there was not much emotion in his eyes. You can still be so calm in the face of death. 13th Prince, your heart is indeed as cold as ice. Xiao Xiao stepped forward. Her body was surrounded by a black demonic aura. The fox race's saintess, who had completely turned black, had a murderous aura that could devour the world. Ning Chen looked at the fox race's saintess, whose aura had greatly changed, and guilt flashed through his eyes. He knew that it was useless to say anything now. How could the truth be explained with a few words? Although it was not his intention, the extermination of the fox race was because of him. While he was thinking, a figure rushed over with murderous aura. The immortal sword slashed down, shaking the world. Ning Chen waved his sword and blocked the immortal sword. He looked at the fox race's saintess in front of him and said calmly, I can only apologize for what happened to the fox race. However, I cannot die here. If you insist on taking my life, then I have no choice but to offend you. After saying that, the demonic aura around Ning Chen increased. He waved his sword and knocked away the opponent in front of him. The 9 king pearls in his body spun rapidly, and demonic aura surged out. The black saber was surrounded by a murderous aura. Ning Chen's eyes were filled with murderous aura. He suppressed the last trace of guilt in his heart, and fought with all his strength. He was at the life-knowing state, and he could never be merciful. Xiao Xiao felt the change in the person in front of her. Her expression became serious. She condensed her immortal sword and used 30% of her power. At the same time, Wanner's palm came from behind. Her attack was even more powerful than before. The immortal sword and heavy palm came at the same time. Endless murderous aura was merciless. Looking at the two gradually approaching, Ning Chen's eyes became deep. Demonic aura surrounded his body, and he disappeared instantly. Xiao Xiao and Wanner's expressions changed at the same time. They released their divine senses, and changed their moves. Boom! Ning Chen appeared behind Xiao Xiao. His sword radiance was earth-shattering. Sensing danger, Xiao Xiao turned her hand and blocked the attack. After a moment of stalemate, Wanner's figure came. Her slender hand condensed the demonic aura of the Emperor's blood. Her palm shook the sky. Ning Chen's eyes became serious. His saber moved, and the heavens opened instantly. The heavenly book martial arts and the 9-tailed mystic technique clashed with each other, and the battle started instantly. You're seriously injured, but you still have such combat power. The 13th prince of the heavenly demon tribe really lives up to his name. Again. As soon as he said that, the black fox holding the sword came again. The demonic aura of the 9 tails covered the sky, covering all the light. At the same time, Wanner stepped into the sky. Her 9-tailed mystic technique was displayed. White light shone in the world. The surging demonic aura was shocking. At that moment, darkness and light appeared in the sky. One was black and the other was white. It was as if the heavens and earth were infinite. Ning Chen dared not be careless when the two women joined forces. He moved his saber and sword, and his demonic aura rushed to the sky. Ning Chen's wild white hair was unusually dazzling. He put his saber and sword together, and heaven and earth opened at the same time. Heaven and earth together, life and death defying fate. The heavenly book appeared, and its light shone over the 9 continents. The 2 swords left his hands and turned into 2 beams of light, slashing toward the 2 in the sky. Ugh! The impact of the ultimate move caused the aftermath to roar. 2 muffled groans sounded. The 2 heavenly ladies of the Fox clan, one black and one white, were injured at the same time. Their 9 tails were dyed red. In the middle of the battle, Ning Chen was also affected by the aftermath. His blood and qi surged violently. Ning Chen knew that the opportunity was fleeting. He ignored the injuries in his body and flashed out instantly. The flowing blood dyed the void red. The white-clothed figure flashed and appeared in front of the saintess of the Fox clan. Kuang-gu disappeared. He controlled the waves and the ability to pick stars, immediately blocking all of the former's escape routes. The palm essence arrived like a raging wave. Xiao Xiao was shocked. She blocked the move with her sword, but she had already lost the initiative. Every move was restricted. Behind her, Wanner saw the change in the battle situation. She rushed over quickly. Her slender hands shook the heavens and earth, trying to resolve the crisis. There was no time to lose. Ning Chen's attack didn't decrease at all. A strange light rose around him as he activated the divine restriction to block the former's palm. Star-picking hand's final move, reverse formless move. The moment Xiao Zhao's defense fell, Ning Chen's left palm surged with demonic essence. He slammed his palm into the girl's dantian. The heavy palm landed on her body. Blood dyed the sky. Xiao Zhao's body flew out, and 30% of her cultivation technique dissipated. At this moment, Wanner's palm arrived behind her. The divine restriction blocked it, but it couldn't be completely dissipated. Her palm landed on Jiming's shoulder. Ning Chen staggered and almost fell to the ground. Blood splashed out and filled the air. Wanner, you must remember that you can't show mercy to your enemies. Ning Chen turned around and looked at the girl in front of him. If that palm strike had hit his vitals, his injuries would have been several times more severe. Are you responsible for the destruction of the Fox clan? Wanner asked with sadness in her eyes. No, Ning Chen replied. But before he finished speaking, another sword light came from behind. Xiao Xiao, who was covered in blood, didn't care about her injured body. She used a killing move that could topple mountains and overturn seas. Ning Chen turned around and waved his sword. It was a sword that returned to its original state, but it had the ability to cut the sky and split the sea. Immortal weapons clashed, and heaven and earth wailed. Xiao Xiao, whose cultivation technique had been crippled, groaned and her hand was dyed red again. Swords shouldn't be used like this. Ning Chen took a step forward and closed in. Then he pointed his finger at the former's hand that was holding the sword. Intense pain came, and Xiao Zhao's hand became unstable. The immortal sword slipped out of her hand. Ning Chen waved his left hand, and the immortal sword returned to his hand. The ancient sword that contained the sword spirit of End Immortal was already covered in cracks. It could be destroyed at any moment. The sword spirit of End Immortal was something that ordinary swords couldn't bear. It wasn't easy for it to last until now. Ning Chen waved his hand and put away the sword spirit. He looked at the Fox Saintess and said calmly, "Stop. You can't kill me." Xiao Zhao's eyes gradually turned blood red, and the 9 black tails behind her surged with demonic qi. It was showing signs of breaking through the limits of her cultivation technique and reaching the peak. Sky Fox worships the moon. At this moment, the surrounding scene changed. In the endless barren land, the moon shone high in the sky. Below, a 9-tailed white fox kowtowed to the moon. The primordial scene reappeared in the world after countless years. In an instant, Ning Chen felt a terrifying tearing sensation coming from his body. With the primordial law on his body, demonic qi couldn't block it. Crack. Cracks appeared on the 9-king pearl. The heavenly demon's supreme treasure showed signs of collapsing under the terrifying primordial law. Ning Chen's eyes were filled with murderous intent as he felt the pain. His body flew out instantly. Ning Chen cut down the phenomenon with one sword. He raised his hand and grabbed the girl's throat, no longer showing mercy. "Your Highness, please have mercy." Seeing this, Wanner immediately pleaded for leniency. Ning Chen's body shook, and hesitation flashed in his murderous eyes. "You have already destroyed 30% of my sister's cultivation. We are no longer a threat to you. Your Highness, please spare my sister's life." Wanner stepped forward with a pleading look on her face. "This is the last time. Wanner, from now on you're on your own." After he finished speaking, Ning Chen withdrew his hand and left without lingering any longer. On the sea, Wanner looked at the departing figure, and the sorrow in her eyes deepened. When fate came, it was too late to catch it. When fate left, they were strangers at the ends of the world. Chapter 1168. In the Third Imperial City, knowing destiny had returned, Ningchen walked into Jiuyo King's mansion and bowed respectfully. With your strength, you shouldn't be injured like this. Demonic chi surged in the void and Jiuyo walked out. He looked at his disciple and said, I feel guilty. Ningchen said with a gloomy expression. It's not your fault that the Fox clan was exterminated. You've already avenged them. However, they can't get over it yet, Jiuyo said. The real culprit behind the destruction of the Fox clan is still at large. The people I killed back then were only his lackeys. Although this matter was not done by me, it still happened because of me. I will not let it go like this. Killing intent flashed in Ningchen's eyes as he coldly said. Jiuyo sighed. The battle for imperial power had always been cruel. It was an unexpected disaster for the Fox clan to be implicated. His disciple was a sentimental person. It would be difficult to resolve this matter peacefully. After a long while, Jiuyo calmed down and looked at Ningchen. He said again, Let me see the immortal sword you took from the reincarnation sea. Ningchen nodded and summoned the celestial slashing sword. He handed it over respectfully. Jiuyo took the immortal sword from the surging demonic chi. He frowned when he saw the crisscrossing cracks on the immortal sword. The celestial slashing sword that was once famous in the ancient times has fallen to such a state. The spirit of the immortal sword is bound to an ordinary sword. Naturally, it can't unleash its full power. Otherwise, it wouldn't be easy for me to take the sword, Ningchen said calmly. Jiuyo nodded and returned the immortal sword. He asked, What do you want to do with this sword? Destroy the sword and move the spirit. Ningchen took the celestial slashing sword and put it away. He said shockingly, Every divine weapon needs tens of thousands of years, or even longer to give birth to a spirit. I have a sword that lives with me. However, I can't wait for tens of thousands of years. Moving the spirit is the only way. Jiuyo's expression turned serious when he heard this. He said, Think carefully. The spirit of the immortal sword has its own thoughts. If it rejects your sword of life, it will be a devastating disaster for you. Master, don't worry. Ningchen nodded. I won't act rashly before I have full confidence. You have a steady personality, so I don't need to worry about you. However, now that you have taken the initiative to get involved in the struggle for imperial power, you might take risks to increase your strength. At this point, Jiuyo's expression turned serious. Ningchen, remember this. You are my disciple. In this primal devil realm, no one can harm your life. Do you understand? Disciple understands. Ningchen bowed respectfully. A smile appeared on his face as he said, However, don't worry, Master. As long as disciple doesn't want to, no one in the primal demon realm can threaten disciple's life. Master has already walked down the most glorious path. Next, you can quietly watch disciple create his own legend. Jiuyo looked at his disciple. After a long time, a gratified expression appeared on his face. Maybe he was overthinking. His disciple would never lose to anyone. Go ahead and do it. I will patiently wait for the day when your name shakes the world, Jiuyo said. Master, don't worry. That day won't be too far away. Ningchen bowed and said goodbye. It's getting late. Disciple will take his leave first. After saying that, Ningchen didn't stay any longer and turned around to leave. In the imperial palace, Jiuyo looked at his disciple's back as light flashed across his eyes. The current Ningchen was very similar to him in the past. He had a proud and unyielding character. In the 13th prince's palace, Ningchen had just returned and the 9th prince had arrived shortly after. The news was so fast that it was shocking. Outside the palace, Xianke quickly walked towards the imperial palace with concern in his eyes. 13th brother. Xianke entered the palace and looked at the young man. I heard that you were injured. How are your injuries? Ningchen glanced at the bloodstains on his body and smiled. It's nothing serious. It's just a small injury. You are the crown prince now. What can't you send someone to do for you? Why did you put yourself in danger? Xianke scolded softly. Ningchen knew that he couldn't hide the appearance of the immortal sword for long. He waved his hand and took out the god-ending sword. Master told me that an immortal sword had appeared in the reincarnation ocean. Hence, I made a trip there. However, the process was a little rough. I fought with the Lord of the Rising Sun Imperial City, and was slightly injured. Xian Ke looked over and saw the cracked ancient sword in Ning Chen's hand. He frowned. Immortal sword? Looking at its appearance, it was nothing more than an ordinary sword. Ninth brother, don't be fooled by its appearance. I spent a lot of effort to get it. Ning Chen smiled. There is an immortal sword spirit in this sword. However, after a great battle, the sword spirit has fallen asleep. Hence, it looks no different from an ordinary sword. Xian Ke retracted his gaze. He didn't care too much about it. His understanding of swords wasn't even 1,000th of old 13ths. Similarly, he wasn't interested in it. Ning Chen put away his immortal sword and looked at the former with a smile. I haven't had the time to thank Ninth Imperial Brother for the matter regarding Azura. It's all thanks to Imperial Brother's appearance that the third prince was able to stabilize Azura and temporarily prevent the eldest prince from returning to the city. There's no need for thanks. Xian Ke said. There's no need to be so formal between us brothers. Rest well. The Imperial City won't be peaceful soon. It's about time for the third prince to make his move. Ning Chen nodded. Ninth brother, be careful too. If the third prince knows that you are still on my side, I'm afraid he'll change his attitude immediately. I understand. Xian Ke replied. Hence, I might not be able to come to the 13 constabularies often. If there's anything, report to me secretly. All right. Ning Chen nodded. Xian Ke then left. He didn't stay in the Crown Prince residence any longer. The situation in the Imperial City was complicated, and they had to be careful. Seeing the ninth prince leave, Ning Chen retracted his gaze and closed his eyes to rest. In the sky, the sun was setting in the west. The sky gradually darkened. The afterglow of the setting sun dyed the world a beautiful golden color. Suddenly, the light of the divine restriction rose in the Crown Prince residence. The moment the divine restriction sealed the space, endless sword intent spread out. The sword pressure was like an ocean, drowning the entire Crown Prince residence. In the ocean of sword intent, an ancient sword covered in cracks appeared out of thin air. The immortal might spread out and could split open the sky. Ha! At this moment in the Imperial Palace, Ning Chen slowly opened his eyes. With a deep roar, blood mist surged around him. In the flowing light, a peerless immortal sword appeared. The moment he held it, the veins on the sword hilt spread out and pierced into his arm. The surging blood dyed the sword red. The sword of one heart and one vein appeared once again. The moment the immortal sword appeared, the immortal sword in the void felt the danger, and immediately resisted violently. The sound of the sword was extremely ear-piercing. In the cage formed by intertwining sword radiances, the immortal sword's power became stronger and stronger. It kept resisting the pressure that came from the surroundings. The immortal slaying sword and the immortal trapping sword have appeared. The immortal slaying sword has also found a wise master. Immortal slaying sword. Are you still willing to be trapped in that broken sword and be mediocre forever? Ning Chen looked at the immortal slaying sword in the cage and said. In the void, the immortal slaying sword trembled. After a while, it started to struggle violently again. Stubborn. Then I'll offend you. Ning Chen's expression turned cold. He stepped forward and jumped up with the sword in his hand. Clang. The two swords clashed. The remaining energy shook and the sword radiances that were binding the immortal sword were hit, and immediately collapsed. As the two swords clashed, more and more cracks appeared on the immortal sword. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. He activated his demonic essence and slashed down with all his might. Boom. In an earth-shattering tremor, the ancient sword broke. In an instant, the entire world quieted down. In the next moment, an extremely terrifying immortal might spread out from the God-forbidden space. It was so powerful that one could not even tell the level of the power. Under the immortal might, Ning Chen's skin started to crack. Blood flowed out and dyed his white robe red. With the danger looming over him, Ning Chen did not dare to hesitate. He endured the pain and formed a seal with one hand. Suddenly, the surrounding area was filled with raging winds and 9 giant dragons roared out. The divergent yellow curse appeared again. The 9 dragons roared in the sky and circled around knowing destiny, blocking the impact of the immortal might. Boom. Boom. The immortal might was shocking. One by one, the giant dragons collapsed and scattered between heaven and earth. Great Sword Realm. Sword Emperor. When the last giant dragon collapsed, Ningchen pointed his finger at the sword. The murky sword current spread out. The Great Sword Realm appeared and strengthened the power of the God-forbidden space. At the same time, in the surging immortal might in the void, an illusory silver immortal sword appeared. Its terrifying power surpassed all the divine weapons in the mortal world. On the opposite side, Ningchen stood in the air. He looked at the token of the immortal sword in front of him, and his expression turned serious. Was this the original appearance of the celestial slashing sword? This power was really terrifying. Knowing that words were useless, Ningchen did not waste any more time. He took a step forward and attacked again. Since he could not make the immortal sword recognize him as its master, he would force it to submit. Knowing destiny's sword fell. Water, fire, wind, and thunder roared and surged. The immortal sword sensed it and attacked. Thunderous rumbles shook the sky and earth. The God-forbidden space could not endure this terrifying destructive power, and immediately started to shake violently. Ningchen clenched his left hand, and the inverted water moon appeared again. He used both swords to resist the immortal might together. The sound of the swords moved and shook the universe. The Sword of Immortals and the Emperor of Swords were fighting at the peak. They would only stop when one side submitted. Clang, clang. In the endless battle, more and more cracks appeared on the inverted water moon. Even the divine weapon of the Moon Demon clan was on the verge of collapse under the power of the immortal sword. Seeing this, Ningchen's expression darkened. He slashed his sword again. In the rumbling, the battle was over. In the sword world, the spirit of the immortal sword became weaker and weaker. It had experienced many battles, and was no longer as sharp as it was when it was born. Dragon Emperor Sword, you have lived in my body for so long. Shouldn't you use your strength? Ningchen looked at the Dragon Emperor sword mark on his right arm. His eyes were cold. He gathered his chi and forced the Dragon Emperor sword to appear. Roar! In an instant, in the earth-shaking tremor, a 5-clawed golden dragon appeared. The Dragon Emperor sword appeared. The Dragon Emperor sword in his hand was shocking. Ningchen held a rare divine weapon on each side. He looked at the spirit of the immortal sword in front of him and said coldly, "If I can't defeat you today, I will change my surname to yours." Chapter 1169. In the 13th Prince's residence, the Knowing Destiny battle immortal spirit. Demonic essence and immortal essence vibrated. With the Dragon God sword in hand, Ningchen's aura reached its peak again. He used both swords at the same time, shining brightly. A strong sense of danger came. The immortal sword sensed it, and immediately awakened. A terrifying immortal aura burst out and slashed down. Ningchen's expression turned cold. He used the Dragon Emperor sword to meet the attack. The Dragon Chi and immortal aura collided, and the entire sword realm changed color. After a moment of stalemate, Ningchen's 4 origins rose again, and his origin sword slashed down. An earth-shattering collision sounded. The immortal sword trembled, and the illusory sword became even more blurry. Wang. Pushed to the limit, the once famous celestial slashing sword exploded with its last bit of power. Suddenly, in the small world, silver ancient swords appeared out of thin air, crisscrossing. Thousands of swords formed a formation, unprecedented since ancient times. Ningchen's eyes narrowed as he looked at the countless swords floating in all directions. His expression darkened. Among the 4 immortal swords, the celestial slashing sword was mysterious and unpredictable. He had never heard of this sword formation before. It would not be easy to deal with. Thinking of this, Ningchen shouted. He used both the Dragon Emperor and his origin swords, and his true essence rushed into the clouds. The moment the 2 swords were activated, red light filled the small world. The extreme Tao of the sword appeared again. The extreme Tao appeared, and the immortal sword sensed it. The sword formation opened at the same time, and the silver sword slashed down at the Knowing Destiny battle immortal spirit. In the next moment, violent clashing sounds echoed in the small world. Ningchen used both swords with both hands. One was fast, and the other was heavy. In the celestial slashing sword formation, thousands of swords slashed down endlessly, trying to kill the person who blasphemed the immortal spirit. Ningchen stood in the sword formation. His figure flashed and he twisted and turned, dodging one attack after another. The two divine weapons in his hands shone brighter and brighter as he waited patiently for the chance to kill. Boom! Ningchen could not dodge in time. The Dragon Emperor sword fighting style sent a strong impact. He took half a step back and used the momentum to leap into the void. Wang! Among the 10,000 swords, an extremely powerful immortal sword hummed. Immediately, thousands of sword lights broke through the air and slashed towards the white-clothed figure. Descent of the Sixth Tao. Thousand Demonic Calamity. Supreme Forbidden Sword. In the air, Ningchen took another step forward and shot up into the sky. At the same time, in the small world, beams of red light shot up into the sky. For the first time, the extreme state of the sword and the forbidden technique of Haotian Gate merged. In an instant, red light filled the sky above the 9 heavens. The extreme state sword carried the power of lightning and turned into a sword cloud that covered the sun. In the void, Juexian trembled slightly. Tens of thousands of swords turned and pointed towards the horizon. Apocalypse. Above the 9 heavens, Ningchen waved his sword. Immediately, the sword clouds rolled out. Within the huge red cloud vortex, beams of blood-red sword light pierced through the air. It had the power to destroy the world, shocking everyone. The blood-red sword light fell. And in the void, tens of thousands of swords rushed to the sky at the same time to meet the attack. As the two extreme moves collided, the world lost its color. In the dazzling sword light, the red and silver-colored sword chi collided with each other and collapsed. Above the 9 heavens, the remaining force attacked. Ningchen spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. In the void, the tens of thousands of silver sword light dissipated. In the raging wind, an ancient celestial sword floated up and down. The sword body became even more illusory. In the sky, Ningchen's figure slowly descended. Although he was injured, his fighting spirit was abnormally strong. Again, Ningchen looked at the celestial sword in front of him and waved both swords. Demonic chi surged as he spoke. Juexian let out a low hum. On the sword, rings of silver light spread out. The unyielding fighting spirit was also dazzling. In an instant, the man and the sword moved again. The clanging of the sword reverberated in the sword world. On the dragon god sword, the golden light became dimmer and dimmer. The dragon god sword's dragon chi was severely depleted. The power of the divine sword could not be fully displayed. At the same time, Juexian's sword spirit let out a low hum. The sword body became blurry, and its spiritual chi was rapidly depleted. Knowing that the dragon god sword could not be held for long, Ningchen used his supreme technique. Behind him, the open heavenly book appeared again. The celestial sword had a spirit, and at the same time, it condensed celestial core power. The outstanding sword spirit surged through the sky and pierced through the sky. Ha! Ningchen let out a deep roar. He stepped forward and his figure flew out. Boom! The dragon god and Juexian clashed. The two peak swords of the world clashed. In the terrifying impact, blood spurted out from Ningchen's left arm. He forcefully held onto the dragon god sword that was about to slip out of his hand. He activated his demonic chi again, and resisted the Juexian's sharp edge. After a series of exchanges, the incomparably powerful Juexian's sword spirit finally reached its limit. With a clang, it was sent flying. After one strike, the dragon god sword could not hold on anymore. A golden light flashed and turned into a sword mark that sank into Ningchen's right arm. In the sword world, Ningchen held his sword and walked forward. Blood kept dripping from his arms. It was abnormally glaring. After 10 steps, Ningchen stopped in front of the celestial sword. His eyes looked at the dim Juexian sword in front of him. He said calmly, "The ancient era has passed, but the new golden era has arrived. Do you really not want to recreate the ancient glory in this era?" Juexian trembled slightly. The illusory sword body flashed, and in an instant, it dimmed again. Ningchen raised his hand and grabbed the Juexian sword. This time he did not have any defense. He directly grabbed the sword with his flesh and blood. The sharp celestial sword cut open his skin, bringing out a waterfall of blood. Ningchen held the Juexian sword and said in a deep voice, "My body was reforged from the immortal peach tree. My sword was reforged from the origin of the divine tree. I will bear your edge and not disgrace the name of Juexian." Juexian trembled. The dimmed sword body tried to break free from Ningchen's hand several times, but it did not succeed. "Ha!" he shouted again. Demonic qi surged around Ningchen. The Juexian sword pierced through his palm and into his arm. Bit by bit, it disappeared. The surging blood mist covered the body of the knowing destiny state. The moment the celestial sword entered his body, the natal sword also disappeared and entered his body. The celestial sword spirit and the natal sword entered his body at the same time. After a few breaths, two swords appeared above the ocean like Dantian Qi Si. The strong sword pressure set off thousands of waves. Boom! In the Qi Si, dark clouds covered the small world of its own. Thunder roared in the small world as if it was a sign before something big happened. The entire small world began to shake. The endless waves swept across. In the sky, the two divine weapons approached slowly. This was something that no one had ever done before. Today, the knowing destiny state was bold enough to try it. In the sky above the Qi Si, the divine weapons approached. The repulsive force became stronger and stronger. The void shook and cracks were everywhere. Outside, Ningchen was hit by the aura in his body. Blood kept flowing from the corner of his mouth. However, success or failure depended on this. How could he give up? In his dantian, the two divine weapons gradually merged. The repulsive force became more and more terrifying. Below, the Qi Si was raging and stormy. It was like the end of the world. Around the dantian, cracks began to appear. His flesh and blood could not bear the terrifying force. There were signs of collapse. At this moment, the origin of the immortal divine tree in Ningchen's body automatically recovered. Endless vitality filled the air and repaired the broken Qi Si. Destruction and rebirth continued to cycle in the knowing destiny state's body. An indescribable pain assaulted his body. Even someone as strong as Ningchen began to tremble violently. Cold sweat dripped down his forehead like rain. At the same time, in his Dantian's Qi Si, the immortal sword spirit and the origin sword merged little by little. Although the divine weapon had yet to take shape, a terrifying pressure gradually spread out. Boom! Inside the small world, lightning streaked across the void, illuminating the dark space. The divine weapons were in the final stage of merging. The space around the divine sword distorted violently, as if it could not bear this terrifying existence. Ugh! In the outside world, Ningchen suddenly staggered and vomited a mouthful of blood. A strong backlash hit his body, adding new injuries to his already injured body. At the same time, far away in the heaven beyond heaven's reverence moon holy ground, a man felt something. She immediately stood up and looked in the direction of the red phoenix star field. This was his aura. What's wrong? Beside her, Qing Ning asked. I feel his aura, a man said softly. She could not be wrong. She had nurtured that sword for a long time, and was very familiar with it. She would never mistake this feeling. He should still be in the original demon territory. Logically speaking, the connection between you two shouldn't be so far away, Qing Ning said with a frown. Logically speaking, it should be so. Not far away, Mu Qingxue walked over and said calmly, however, if the connection is strong, it's not impossible. With his personality, it's not strange for him to do something crazy. Hearing this, Qing Ning frowned again. It was indeed possible. That brat wouldn't be doing something suicidal again, would he? A man's eyes flashed with longing. When would he come back? She was still waiting for him to fulfill his promise and give her a peaceful world. In the original demon territory, in the Crown Prince's palace, Ningchen's body kept trembling. His terrifying willpower endured the terrifying pain and refused to give in. Above his Dantian's Qi Si, the two divine swords had completely merged. However, the strong repulsive force did not disappear. Instead, it became more and more intense. Your mission is over. Leave the rest to me. As he spoke, demonic qi surged above his Dantian's Qi Si. A black-clothed figure walked out. They had the same appearance but a completely different aura. As the demonic body appeared, demonic flames surged out. He used his body as a furnace to refine the divine weapon. The demonic flames engulfed the divine weapon and bore all the repulsive force. Outside, Ning Chen's body fell down powerlessly and crashed onto the ground. Blood flowed out and dyed the ground red. In the battle between man and sword, the man won the sword in the end. Around the crown prince's palace, the divine restriction gradually disappeared. Thunder rumbled in the sky and rain poured down. In the heavy rain, Ji Ming, who was unconscious on the ground, did not wake up. He was like a person who had been tired for a long time. Even a short rest was so precious. Outside the crown prince's palace, the ghost carriage rushed over. It stopped in front of the palace and a beautiful figure walked out. Her pale face was strangely charming. "Where's the crown prince?" Inji looked at the two guards in front of the palace and asked. "He's been in the palace." One of the guards bowed and answered respectfully. Inji nodded and walked quickly into the palace. In front of the palace, a white-clothed figure was lying unconscious on the ground. His body was covered in blood, and it was a shocking sight. Seeing this, Inji's eyes shrank. She immediately rushed forward and helped the former up. "Your Highness!" Inji shouted anxiously. Her Yin essence entered the former's body to check his injuries. When the Yin essence entered his body, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. It disappeared without a trace. Inji's face changed. What's going on? His Highness's body seemed to be completely different from ordinary people. Chapter 1170. In the Third Imperial City, it was raining continuously. After the downpour, the rain gradually weakened and continued for nearly 2 days. In the 13th Prince's palace, a white-haired figure in plain clothes sat quietly in front of the fire. His eyes were tired as if he had not rested for a long time. Opposite him, Inji looked at the 13th Prince in front of her. A trace of seriousness flashed across her cold face. Why would the 13th Prince faint in her palace for no reason? Could it be that there was something wrong with his body? "Your Highness." After thinking for a long time, Inji finally could not suppress the worry in her heart and asked, "Why did you suddenly faint in your palace?" "I went to the reincarnation ocean not long ago and was slightly injured when fighting for the immortal sword. It's nothing serious," Ning Chen answered honestly. "Immortal sword?" Inji frowned and said, "A few days ago, there was a strange movement in the reincarnation ocean. Many people went there but almost none of them came back. Could it be that those strange movements were the premonition of the immortal sword's birth?" "Yes." Ning Chen nodded and said, "The Lord of Sunrise Imperial City is very lucky and brought the immortal sword out from the reincarnation ocean. I was instructed by my master to go and stop him. It took me a lot of effort to get the immortal sword back. Congratulations to Your Highness for obtaining another divine weapon. With the help of the immortal sword, Your Highness's strength will definitely be greater than before," Inji said respectfully. "Let's not talk about this for now." Ning Chen changed the topic and said, "How is the matter I asked you to do?" "It's all arranged," Inji replied. "Once Your Highness gives the order, the spies planted by my race will immediately take action." Ning Chen nodded and looked at the flickering fire in front of him. Ripples flashed across his tired eyes. It was finally going to end. "Your Highness, will we anger the 2 demon emperors by doing this?" Inji expressed her concern and asked. "Yes," Ning Chen replied softly, "but don't worry. Before there is conclusive evidence, even the 2 demon emperors can't casually take action. The reason I asked you to use non-ghost race people is to not give the 2 demon emperors a chance to cause trouble. But Your Highness is going to fight for the throne in the future. If the 2 demon emperors are dissatisfied, won't you be destroying your future?" Inji did not understand. "You know too little about the 2 demon emperors." Ning Chen stretched out his right hand and warmed it above the fire, dispelling the chill in his body slightly. He continued, "They have never approved of me. The reason why they gave me the 9 King Pearl was so that I could keep the 3rd prince in check while the 1st prince was away. Now the 1st prince is the only candidate that the 2 demon emperors approve of." Inji's face was slightly shaken. So it was like this. The ghost race was far away from the 3 imperial cities, and they didn't have a complete understanding of the situation in the imperial city. As for the 2 demon emperors' thoughts, it was even harder to guess. If that was the case, the ghost clan would have no chance of winning if they chose the 13th prince. Ningchen raised his head and looked at the change in the girl's expression. He smiled faintly and said, "Actually, you don't have to panic." Speaking of this, Ningchen stood up and walked to the front of the palace. He looked to the west and sneered. Who can get the celestial devil royal family's unification will depend on who can live to the end. That demon emperor Kuan. He can't be trapped in the easternmost land forever. Therefore, although the crown prince has the support of 2 demon emperors, he may not be the final winner. As long as the position of the celestial devil royal family remains undecided, the balance of power between the 3 sides will not be broken. Let's wait patiently. Since the ghost tribe has made a choice, you should believe in your own decision. Inji was silent. After a while, she bowed respectfully and said, "Thank you for your advice, Your Highness. Is there anything else? If not, you may leave." Ningchen said calmly, "Goodbye, Inji." Inji replied softly and turned to leave. After Inji left, the imperial palace became quiet again. Only the crackling sound of the furnace fire could be heard from time to time, adding a little liveliness to the quiet crown prince residence. Ningchen looked at the gloomy rain outside the imperial palace and stood silently. Thoughts flashed through his tired eyes as he weighed every step he had to take in the future. "Should you go boil a pot of?" After thinking for a long time, Ningchen felt a little thirsty. He subconsciously called out, but before he could finish, he suddenly paused. Returning to his thoughts, Ningchen looked back at the empty imperial palace. His eyes dimmed. He almost forgot that the 2 girls had left. Sighing softly, Ningchen walked out of the imperial palace. Not long after, he came back with a teapot and green tea. He walked to the front of the furnace and started to boil the tea himself. The quality of the tea in the residence was not bad. There was no need for exquisite tea skills. The fragrance of the tea gradually spread out. Not long after, the tea was ready. Ningchen poured a cup of tea. Looking at the green tea leaves floating in the tea, a nostalgic look flashed across his face. After so many years, he had tasted countless famous teas and defeated one enemy after another. However, he could no longer find the feeling of meeting a worthy opponent. Fan Lingyue, what a pity. The few failures in his life were all given to him by this northern Meng military advisor. If it were not for the fact that the heavens did not allow such a stunning woman to exist, he might have really lost 100 years ago. Fan Lingyue was the only wise person in the world, followed by them. Compared to the great Xia of the past, the current primordial demon realm was actually not at a disadvantage. The reason why the heavenly demonic imperial family could not break out of this situation was not because they lacked combat power, but because the heavenly demonic imperial family lacked people who could see the big picture clearly. Although the 2 demon emperors were very strong, it did not mean that their combat power was superior to ordinary people. The 4 great imperial families had the combat power of emperors of the same level. As long as the emperors kept each other in check, the key to being able to change the situation was the decision-maker's control of the big picture. In the Witch tribe's sacred palace in the northern continent, the aging emperor Go opened his eyes and looked at the primordial demon realm in the distance. The fate of the 13th prince had changed again. In this primordial demon realm, the person she could not understand the most was the heavenly demonic crown prince from the human race. His occasional display of brilliance was already shocking. It could be said that the heavenly demonic crown prince single-handedly facilitated the situation of the 5 great imperial families. Although the 5 great imperial families all had the same intention, if there was no one in the middle, it would be impossible for them to join forces. What made her even more impressed was that when the 8 tribes appeared and the 5 great imperial families gradually fell, this person took the initiative to go to the north for peace talks and set up a new killing trap. If the heavenly demonic clan could not find out who was setting up the trap in the dark, it was only a matter of time before they were defeated. It would be a nightmare to make an enemy out of such a terrifying young man. If someone had told her before she met this person that a young man with an ordinary cultivation level could stir up the primordial demon realm to such an extent, she would definitely not have believed it. Senior Go Huang. At this moment, a figure in plain clothes walked out from the void and bowed respectfully to the emperor in front of him. Seeing the person who came, Go Huang stood up and said, "Congratulations to the 13th prince for obtaining another divine weapon. Your strength has improved by leaps and bounds." So Senior Go Huang knows about it. Ningchen smiled and said, "I was just lucky to get some help. In front of Senior Go Huang, my strength is not worth mentioning." 13th prince is too humble. Go Huang said calmly, "Now in this world, except for the emperor realm experts, your highness is not afraid of anyone." The 13th prince's growth was too fast. She still remembered clearly that when they first met, although the young man in front of her was stunning, he was only above the younger generation. In just a few years, this person could already look down on the heroes of the world, and was not even afraid of the Emperor realm experts. What was more terrifying was that there were too few people who knew about this. In the world's impression, the heavenly demonic crown prince was still a young man who lived under the protection of the netherworld demon emperor. Although he was strong, he was not at the top. There are countless experts in the world. In the west, there are the two palace masters, Luo Jia and Sha Luo. In the north, there are the three witch empresses, Yu Hongshui and Baiji. The heavenly demonic imperial family also has peerless experts like Azura and Garuda. My strength is not small compared to these seniors. Ningchen replied humbly, "You have cultivated for too short a time. It is already unprecedented for you to have today's achievements. Although there is still a gap between you and them, it is not too big. At least, you don't have to look up to them." Go Huang said seriously. Ningchen smiled and did not talk about this topic. He changed the topic and said, "Senior Go Huang, how is the progress? Azura will not be in seclusion for too long. Once he takes action, the situation will change again." Hearing this, Go Huang's expression became serious and he said seriously, "There is some progress, but it still needs time. We can only rely on your highness to deal with the primordial demon region." Ningchen nodded. The heavenly demonic 9 transformations had been perfected by generations of demon emperors. It was close to perfection. It was not easy to find the flaw. Only Go Huang, who was proficient in deduction, could do it. It could be said that the most important part of this plan was Go Huang. "Senior Go Huang, there is something that I would like to say." Ningchen looked at the aging Go Huang and reminded him, "Although Miss Tian Xian is talented, she is still young. It will not be easy for her to bear the burden of the sorcerer tribe's rise and fall. Senior, you should plan ahead." Hearing this, Go Huang fell silent. The 13th prince was right. He had to plan ahead for the future of the sorcerer tribe. "It is getting late. I will take my leave." Seeing that Go Huang was deep in thought, Ningchen did not stay any longer. He bowed respectfully and disappeared. In the 13th prince's palace, Ningchen opened his eyes and his consciousness gradually returned. A helpless sigh echoed in the palace and his tired heart became heavier. Why is it that everything in this world is always difficult? Ningchen walked to the front of the palace and looked at the autumn rain that had not stopped. The fatigue in his eyes became harder to hide. Go Huang's lifespan was getting shorter and shorter. He might not be able to hold on for much longer. The person who had sacrificed the most in this plan was the Go Huang of the sorcerer tribe. However, Go Huang's sacrifice was unavoidable if he wanted to complete the plan. He did not want to hurt anyone, but he had sacrificed too many people time and time again. If possible, he hoped that there would be no more wars in this world. Chapter 1171. In the northwest of the primordial demon region, on Yangguan Peak, there was a tall building. It was majestic and extraordinary. Clouds swirled around the building, and powerful auras flickered in and out of existence, striking fear into people. The number 1 pavilion was a mysterious force that had existed in the central continent for countless years. It had weathered far too many storms, but it still existed. Rumor had it that the pavilion master of the number 1 pavilion was an expert close to the Emperor Dao. However, no one had truly seen this mysterious pavilion master in the past thousands of years. The pavilion had 4 profound realms, and the 4 sovereign realm experts each guarded an area. Their absolute defense made the number 1 pavilion an impenetrable place. On this day, 2 illusionary figures walked out of the number 1 pavilion. They flickered several times before disappearing into the distance. Rain continued to fall in the 3 royal cities. For several days, the autumn rain still did not stop. Bai Yi stood silently in front of the royal palace in the 13th prince's residence. She had not left since returning from the Sea of Samsara. She had remained in the royal city to observe the situation. Suddenly Ningchen's expression froze. He looked outside and squinted his eyes. Something was wrong. Before he had finished thinking, 2 beams of killing intent shot through the air outside the royal palace without any warning. Ningchen's eyes turned cold. He took a step forward and dodged the 2 beams of killing intent. Pung. Sword chi tore through the air. 2 tables in the royal palace were affected and immediately shattered into pieces. Ningchen raised his hand. Demonic chi surged, and the inverted moon appeared. The instant he gripped his sword, killing intent filled the air. Outside the royal palace, the invisible danger arrived once again. 2 sharp beams of sword chi shot over together. It was a strange change that had never been seen before. Ningchen took a step forward and dodged the 2 beams of sword chi. At the same time, he slashed out with the Moon Demon Divine artifact in his hand. The moment the 3 swords clashed, 2 figures appeared briefly before him. They were blurry illusions that still could not be seen clearly. What a strange cultivation technique. You've successfully piqued my curiosity. After saying that, Ningchen's demonic chi erupted. The 9 king pearls in his body spun rapidly, and vast demonic might surged out. With a loud bang, the 2 assassins were forced back several steps. In the rain, the silhouette of an illusory figure could be vaguely seen, but it was difficult to discern its true appearance. Ningchen's figure flashed out. The demonic chi around his body protected the divine sword that was covered in cracks. He slashed out with his sword with all his might. The 2 assassins dodged the divine swords and rushed to the sides of the knowing Destiny Saint in an instant. Their swords pierced through the air and attacked again. Ningchen turned sideways, and the 2 swords brushed past each other. The moment they passed each other, Ningchen condensed Yuan in his palms and struck out with an earth-shattering force. At the critical moment, the figures of the 2 assassins disappeared. The palm energy passed through their bodies, and they were not injured at all. After a single move, the 2 swords intersected. An even faster sword slashed through the autumn rain, mercilessly reaping lives. Clang! The 3 swords clashed again, and the cracked inverted moon and water suffered new damage. The cracks spread, and it showed signs of collapse. Seeing this, Ningchen frowned. He raised his left palm and counterattacked with a powerful palm force. Boom! Amidst the earth-shattering tremors, the 2 assassins couldn't turn into the void in time, and were forced to take several steps back. Ningchen put away his divine swords, and the demonic chi covered his body. His eyes changed and became cold and emotionless. 12 moves of spiritual rhino. 100 tides set the sky. The moon-worshipping divine martial art appeared again, shaking the heavens and earth with yin and yang. Ningchen's palms turned into a peerless technique, and huge waves surged between the heavens and the earth with shocking power. The 2 assassins' expressions changed slightly. They didn't dare to hesitate. They combined their swords and resisted the extreme power together. The next moment, the waves hit the sky, and the entire crown prince's residence shook violently. The light of the divine prohibition flickered, protecting the residence. Inside the residence, 2 figures flew out from the waves. They couldn't avoid it, and their mouths were red. Ugh! 100 steps away, the 2 assassins, Tianqian and Deke, appeared. They staggered a few steps and vomited blood again. After the waves dissipated, Ningchen walked forward step by step. He looked at the man and woman in front of him and said coldly, "I've already spared your lives. Before my patience runs out, tell me who's behind you." Tianqian and Deke exchanged glances. They couldn't hide the shock in their eyes. The 13th prince's strength was too different from the information they received. Tianqian and Deke of the number 1 pavilion greets the 13th prince. Tianqian stepped forward and bowed. He said in a respectful tone. Deke, who was dressed as a woman, also bowed silently. Hearing this, Ningchen's eyes flashed coldly. The number 1 pavilion? That famous assassin organization. Is it the #1 pavilion that wants to kill me? Or is someone paying for my life? Ningchen looked at the two and asked calmly. Your Highness, please don't misunderstand. Tianqin said respectfully. Deek and I are here under the orders of the Pavilion Master to help your Highness achieve greatness. Oh. Ningchen squinted his eyes and said. Then what do you mean by what you did before? If we want to join the Pavilion Master, we have to show our strength. Otherwise, how can your Highness value us? Tianqin replied. Ningchen stared at the two. After a long while his expression changed slightly. Human? You're human? Ningchen asked in a deep voice. Is that strange? Isn't your Highness a human too? DK, who was beside Tianqin, said in an unfriendly tone. Deek. Tiansan's expression turned cold. He scolded. Don't be rude to your Highness. She's right. I'm a human, Ningchen said coldly. I'm curious. Why does the #1 pavilion dare to take you in? Or is the Pavilion Master of the #1 pavilion a human too? Tianqin and Deek were silent. Neither of them said anything. Ningchen looked at the two's reaction and understood. He had been wondering why there were almost no human masters in the primordial demon realm. They were all hiding. The #1 pavilion had always been mysterious. They never asked for reasons when they hired assassins. For thousands of years, they had offended many big clans. However, the #1 pavilion was very powerful. 100 years ago, a few royal clans had joined forces to attack them, but they were still defeated. It could be said that no one could do anything to this mysterious organization unless an Emperor Realm Master attacked them personally. If the #1 Under Heaven Pavilion was really an organization formed by human experts, then many things could be explained. Although the primordial demon realm was a flourishing place, the human race had not been completely wiped out. Those martial experts could not have disappeared into thin air. However, even if the #1 pavilion was a human, it could not be trusted. In this primordial demon realm, the human race had been suppressed for far too long. He was unable to determine what kind of mentality these martial way experts of the human race had. Uncontrollable factors would bring unnecessary variables to his plans. He did need more power, but first he had to make use of this power. You're too weak. Ningchen looked at the two and said calmly, with your abilities, you're not qualified to follow me. DK was furious. He was about to speak but was stopped by Tianqin. Tianqin cupped his fists and said respectfully, since your Highness doesn't like our abilities, we won't disturb you any longer. We'll take our leave first. Tianqin glanced at Deek, who was beside him. Then he stood up and left. Deek suppressed his anger and looked coldly at the man in front of him. He did not say anything and left with him. A day later, Tianqin and Deek returned to the Cloud Pavilion on Yangguan Peak in the northwest of the primordial demon realm. After entering the pavilion, they knelt down and bowed respectfully. Failed. Within the vast hall, a figure surrounded by multicolored light walked out. He looked at the two of them and said, don't worry. Pavilion Master, Tianqin said respectfully. The 13th Prince's abilities exceeded our expectations. Deek and I are no match for him. It's expected. Did he accept your loyalty? The man asked calmly in the light. He refused. Deek answered angrily. DK replied angrily. Pavilion Master, why should we express goodwill to a traitor who defected to the demons? Traitor? The man murmured softly and said, perhaps what you see with your eyes might not be real. Ever since the 13th Prince joined the Sky Devil royal family, he had been paying attention to him. The longer he watched, the more shocked he was. Over the years, the Sky Devil royal family had been involved in many major events. They seemed unrelated, but in reality, each event was consuming the Sky Devil royal family's strength. First, the 7th Heavenly Demon Crown Prince died on the Dragon King Mountain. Then the first Demon King was trapped in the easternmost land. Then the two princes fought each other, and both suffered heavy losses. Finally, the 5 royal families worked together to kill the demons. The once prosperous overlord of the world was now in a difficult situation. All of this happened after the 13th Prince joined the Sky Devil royal family. It was too much of a coincidence. However, What was shocking was that there was no trace of the 13th prince behind all of this. If the truth was as he guessed, then the 13th prince's intelligence and methods were too terrifying. After thinking for a while, the man came back to his senses. He looked at the two in front of him and said calmly, "You can leave now. You don't have to worry about what happens next." Yes. Tian Can and DK bowed at the same time, then stood up and left. Not long after they left, the space in the hall swirled. 4 kings guarding the 4 mysterious realms appeared in 4 vortexes. They sat cross-legged in the air with shocking auras. "What do you think?" The man looked at the 4 kings in the air and asked. "It's worth a gamble." The only woman among the 4 kings said calmly, "The Sky Devil royal family's strength is unshakable. It's the first time in so many years that someone has forced the Sky Devil royal family into such a difficult situation. The 13th prince might be the real mastermind." "I don't agree." As soon as the woman finished speaking, a king in the west said in a low voice, "It's all just a guess. If the 13th prince has really betrayed us, then the number 1 pavilion in the world will be completely exposed to the Sky Devil royal family." The other 2 kings were silent. It was too difficult to decide. On one hand, there was an opportunity. On the other hand, there was a risk. There was a 50% chance. If they made the wrong choice, they would have no chance to turn things around. "Pavilion Master, I'll go personally," the woman said calmly. "The West King's worries are not without reason. Before I make a decision, I'll test it one more time." Chapter 1172. Yangguan Peak, the number 1 pavilion in the northern profound realm. In a small world of ice and snow, a beautiful woman sat cross-legged. Snowflakes drifted around her, making her look pure and flawless. The number 1 pavilion's northern region king, Qing Shuang, was one of the few top human cultivators in the primitive demon realm. Her cultivation was at the top of the king realm, and her strength was unfathomable. The primitive demon realm had changed greatly, and the flames of war were everywhere. Qing Shuang, who had been sitting in the northern profound realm for hundreds of years, stood up for the first time and walked out of the world of ice and snow. In the 13th prince's residence in the celestial devil imperial city, Ning Chun, who had been waiting in front of the palace, looked into the distance. He had been in the celestial devil imperial city for many years, and the human cultivators had finally found him. This was not strange. He just wanted to know what the number 1 pavilion's purpose was. Countless years of repressed life could change many things. If the humans in this realm had forgotten the fact that they were humans, he did not mind wiping them all out in this war. Outside the 3 imperial city, a woman in a green and white palace dress walked over. Her black hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall. Her temperament was extraordinary, and it was very eye-catching. Qing Shuang entered the city. Immediately, the king realm cultivators in the city sensed her, and looked in the direction of the city gate with strange expressions. What a powerful aura. A new king realm cultivator had come to the 3 imperial city. In front of the city gate, Commander Xian Mo looked at the woman walking over and asked, "Miss, why have you come to the celestial devil imperial city?" "I'm looking for someone," Qing Shuang said softly. "Who?" Xian Mo asked. "The 13th prince." Qing Shuang answered truthfully. Xian Mo's expression darkened. "The 13th prince is of noble status and does not meet guests easily. Did you get permission?" "No," Qing Shuang said calmly. "Since you were not summoned by the crown prince, please go back," Xian Mo said in a low voice. Qing Shuang ignored her and continued walking forward. Seeing this, Xian Mo held the saber at her waist with her left hand. Her true essence surged, ready to attack at any time. As the great battle was about to begin, Qing Shuang raised her right hand slightly. Cold energy spread from her slender fingers. Although it seemed simple, it gave all the imperial army soldiers present an unparalleled pressure. In front of the 13th prince's palace, Ning Chun felt the coldness from afar. He narrowed his eyes and walked out of the palace. In front of the Heavenly Demon Imperial City, the Heavenly Demon Imperial Guard, and the number 1 under heaven pavilion faced each other. The atmosphere was so heavy that it made it hard for people to breathe. Xianemo held the saber in her left hand. Even before the saber was drawn, a terrifying pressure was looming. She was the commander of the Imperial Guards of the Sky Devil Imperial family, a peerless powerhouse whose name shook the world. No one under the Imperial Dao dared to underestimate her. The two peerless masters in the King realm confronted each other. Their auras shook, and their powerful forces collided with each other. The area within 1,000 feet gradually became a vacuum zone, and no one could get close to it. "Excuse me." With a deep shout, Xianmo's head moved. Her battle saber was unsheathed. With the power to split mountains and split seas, it came crashing down. Qing Shuang narrowed her eyes and raised her slender hand. White snow swirled in the air as she blocked the incoming attack. With a loud bang, the saber and the palm collided. The remaining power roared and surged, crazily spreading out. It was an evenly matched move, and it was hard to tell who had the upper hand. In the aftermath, the two figures were as still as mountains. Their true essence surged as they collided. "The two of you, please stop." Just as the two were about to clash again, a plain-clothed figure walked over from outside the battlefield. In an instant, she had entered the battlefield. The surging demonic chi was vast and boundless. In the demonic chi, sword light crisscrossed. It was incomparably sharp and powerful. With a rumble, the three powerhouses clashed. With the three of them as the center, raging waves spread rapidly. Everywhere it passed, stone slabs flew, and the streets were destroyed. In the center of the battlefield, the dust gradually dispersed, and the three figures appeared. Ningchen looked at the woman in front of him and said calmly, "Miss, are you looking for me?" "Yes," Qing Shuang said calmly. "Excuse me for not going out to meet you. Miss, please." Ningchen stepped aside and said with a smile. Qing Shuang nodded and walked forward. "Commander Xianemo, I'll take this girl away." Ningchen glanced at Xianemo and said calmly. Then he turned around and left with her. Xianemo didn't stop them. She looked at the two of them, leaving with a serious look in her eyes. The 13th prince was going further and further on the road to power. In the 13th prince's palace, the two of them walked one after the other. Everyone in the imperial city paid close attention to the 13th prince's movements. In the 3rd prince's palace, when the news came, Xianqing's face also became serious. "When did the 13th prince get to know such an expert?" "Your Highness, we can't wait any longer. The 13th prince's forces are growing day by day. Soon he will become a big problem for your Highness." Dong Xianyuting, the leader of the 4 entrances, said with a serious expression. Xianqing frowned and looked outside the palace. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Find an opportunity to get rid of the 13th prince's minions. Remember, don't leave any traces." "Yes," Dong Xianyuting said respectfully. At the same time, in the 13th prince's palace, Ningchen looked at the woman in front of him and asked, "Miss, how should I address you?" "Qing Shuang." "Human?" Ningchen asked directly. "Human," Qing Shuang answered honestly. Hearing this, Ningchen didn't look too surprised. He nodded slightly and said, "Are there many human experts like you in the primitive demon realm?" "Not many," Qing Shuang said calmly. "No more than 5. Ningchen sighed softly and said, "As expected. With your Highness's wisdom, you should know why." "I don't understand. Why did your Highness give up your identity as a human and join the Sky Devil Imperial family?" Qing Shuang said coldly. "Since Miss Qing Shuang knows that I have joined the Sky Devil Imperial family, why do you still dare to take the risk alone? Aren't you afraid that I will be heartless and leave you in the Sky Devil Imperial city forever?" Ningchen said indifferently. "If my life can let the people of the world see your Highness' true intentions, it is worth it," Qing Shuang said calmly. "Oh." Hearing this, Ningchen's eyes narrowed as he said, "I admire Mrs. Temperament. However, can everyone in the primal demon realm be as selfless as Miss?" "They can't." Qing Shuang's bright eyes flashed. She replied, "The human race in this world has been suppressed by the 100 races for too long. There are countless people with twisted minds. However, we can't abandon the entire human race because of this." Ningchen listened to the woman in front of him quietly. He stared at her for a long time. These words were so familiar. Back in the Divine Continent, the Nether King destroyed the world. It was because of the filth of human hearts that the noble master of the seven absolute heavens was disgusted. He personally came to the divine continent and chose to destroy the world. At that time, they were just like the woman in front of him. They never gave up. I need humans that I can trust, not people with twisted minds. Do you understand, miss? Ningchen said calmly. Qing Shuang was silent. After a while she said, the number 1 pavilion is the last strength of the human race. When it was created, it was to fight against the 100 races and secretly protect the surviving humans in the primitive demon realm. Therefore it is trustworthy. Not trustworthy. Ning Chen's expression was cold. I don't care about the purpose of the establishment of the number 1 pavilion under the heavens. People are fickle. After so many years, how many people still remember the original purpose of the establishment? Miss, how can I trust these people? Qing Shuang frowned slightly and said, we chose to trust Your Highness. Your Highness should trust us more. Ha, trust. Ning Chen sneered and said, Miss Qing Shuang, these 2 words are too heavy. I can't bear it. Moreover, if the number 1 pavilion really trusted me, they wouldn't have sent people to test us again and again, right? There is a reason for this. Please forgive us, Your Highness. Qing Shuang said apologetically. The human race is weak and can't withstand any storms. We sent people to test you. First, to confirm Your Highness's strength. Second, to let Your Highness see our power. I've seen it. It's not a surprise. Ning Chen's attitude was still cold. There is still a gap between us and the 5 royal families, let alone the heavenly demon clan. 5 experts at the late or peak of the king realm were not weak. However, compared to the royal families of the primal demon realm, the gap was too big. The human race didn't grow up in the same environment as the 100 races. It's not easy to preserve such power. Your Highness, why do you have to be so aggressive? Qing Shuang sighed softly. Ning Chen looked at the woman in front of him quietly and said seriously, Miss Qing Shuang, to tell you the truth, if I have to choose between getting the help of 5 untrustworthy experts and maintaining the status quo, I'd rather maintain the status quo. Do you understand? I can't feel the sincerity of the number 1 pavilion. So miss, please go back. Qing Shuang frowned slightly. After a long time, she nodded lightly and said, I'll bring Your Highness's words back to the pavilion master. I'll take my leave first. With that, Qing Shuang didn't stay any longer. She sighed inwardly and turned to leave. Ning Chen looked at her back and said meaningfully, Miss Qing Shuang, be careful on the road. Qing Shuang's footsteps paused when she heard this. Immediately, she continued to walk forward. Thank you for your reminder, Your Highness. Half a day later, 3,000 miles north of the 3 Emperor City, Qing Shuang appeared and stopped. Around her, dust and sand rose without wind. The killing intent hidden in the wind and sand could be clearly seen. Qing Shuang frowned. As expected, someone wanted to harm her. That 13th Highness really predicted things. Qing Shuang didn't want to fight fearlessly. She took a step forward and her figure flickered. In a few breaths, she was already 1,000 miles away. However, the wind and sand followed her like a shadow. The killing intent didn't dissipate even 1,000 miles away. Instead, it became even fiercer. Qing Shuang didn't run away anymore. She stopped and snow drifted around her as she prepared to face the enemy. The wind around her grew stronger and stronger. A man in green appeared in the wind. His aura was so strong that it made people wary. At the same time, a second figure descended from the sky. Lightning surged around him and his aura was extremely strong. Dongxian Yuting, Xixian Yufeng. Qing Shuang looked at the 2 with a cold expression. The 4 Xian royal clan of the primal demon realm. Miss, surrender and you'll suffer less. Xixian Yufeng said coldly in the wind and sand. I can't. Qing Shuang replied coldly. Her figure flickered as she made the first move. Chapter 1173. In the north of the 3 imperial city, Dongxian Yuting and Xishuan Yufeng were trying to stop the northern region king of the number 1 pavilion. After a moment of confrontation, Qing Shuang moved and attacked first. Snow filled the sky and lingered around her body. Qing Shuang's slender hand condensed an extremely cold qi and directly slapped at the man in the wind. Shi Xuan Yufeng snorted and stepped forward. His body was like a willow, avoiding the former's palm power. Then his body turned back and the willow blade in his hand mercilessly slashed at the woman in front of him. Qing Shuang focused and moved sideways to avoid the blade light. Her slender hand condensed qi and attacked aggressively. When the palm energy arrived, Shi Xian Yufeng's body moved quickly. He dodged and counterattacked. It was so fast that it was hard to follow. This was a battle of using speed to counter surprise. In the battle, Shi Xian Yufeng's figure was as fast as the wind, erratic and unpredictable. His willow blade drew out streak after streak of cold light that pressed for life. On the other hand, in the center of the battle, Qing Shuang was as still as a mountain. Her slender hand raised the wind and snow, blocking the attacks from all sides again and again. Outside the battle, Dongxian Yuting's palm condensed vast qi. The galloping lightning became more and more powerful. The destructive power spread out, shocking everyone. Two strong people surrounded and attacked. One was delaying with a swift blade while the other was waiting to attack. In the battle, Qing Shuang released all of her vital qi. While blocking the attacks, her spirit was always paying attention to the man outside the battle. She knew very well that the real killing move was in this man. Ha! With a deep shout, on Dongxian Yuting's right palm, the thunder roared like thousands of birds. The ear-piercing roar reverberated between heaven and earth. The destructive power reached the peak again. After a long time, the thunder broke through 10,000 techniques. Dongxian Yuting stepped out. His palm crushed the void and directly slapped at the woman in the battle. Facing the strong killing intent, Qing Shuang's expression became calmer. Her slender hand moved and the snow in the sky gathered rapidly, forming a huge snow lotus. The moment the palm arrived, the snow lotus closed and protected her body. The thunder rumbled and the sky and earth turned upside down. Under the destructive thunder, the snow lotus shattered. The palm power broke through the barrier and continued to attack the woman in the snow lotus. Boom! Her slender hand met the attack. The snow wave went against the flow. The two palms collided and the impact rose again, rolling up thousands of layers of snow. Two muffled groans. Two vital qi of completely different attributes collided. Yu Ting and Qing Shuang's lips turned red. They were both injured. At the same time, behind them, the wind and the swift blade was ruthless. Clang! Qing Shuang raised her hand. Her delicate hand shook the cold blade. Cold air filled the air and sealed the hand that was holding the blade. Dongxian Yuting's eyes narrowed. Seizing the opportunity, he pushed his palm forward again. Thunder surged and pressed down on the woman in front of him. As the lightning entered her body, the corners of Qing Shuang's mouth were dyed red again. However, the blood did not stop flowing, nor did her fighting spirit. Drink! With a shout that resounded through the 9 heavens, waves of snow surged out from Qing Shuang's body. Her true essence surged, and her fine black hair danced wildly. 1,000 autumn snow finger, 100 tide calming. Qing Shuang pushed Xiaochen to the limit, and the martial forbidding technique appeared. She flipped her hands, and the snow within 100 miles turned into 1,000 waves. A world-shaking power crazily pressed down. Shi Xian Yufeng and Dongxian Yuting were both pushed back several feet. They looked at the woman in the snowy waterfall in front of them and were shocked. This woman's cultivation was truly terrifying. Let's end this quickly. Seeing that the opponent's strength was not bad, Dongfang Yuting's face sank. He didn't want to change. He took a step forward, and the lightning flashed again. The figure that rushed out was like a flood dragon emerging from the sea. Violent energy filled the air as his fist shook the heavens and the earth. Boom! The fist and the palm met again. The cold air and the lightning struck sharply. Dongfang Yuting's fist approached inch by inch. He wanted to leave the woman in front of him here completely. In the battle, the two destructive forces devoured each other. Bloodstains appeared on the arms of Qing Shuang and Dongxian Yuting. Their bodies could not bear the terrible power of the backlash. Imperial wind kill. Behind them, Shi Xian Yufeng seized a moment of opportunity. A gust of wind rose. In the wind, one knife killed 100 people. The killing intent in the cold wind was sharp and piercing. Qing Shuang felt it. Her eyes were filled with anger. On her delicate hand, blood gushed out. Snow frightens the lonely city. She struck again. The snow waves were like flowing water. The snow waves surged, swallowing hundreds of knife lights. The man in the wind was blown away. A pool of blood splashed in the wind. Xian Yufeng flew out and smashed on the distant mountain peak. Yufeng. Dong Xian Yuting's face changed slightly. His eyebrows were raised in anger. He pushed his palm again and pressed it on the left shoulder of the woman in front of him. One move after another. Qing Shuang coughed out blood and slid back a few hundred meters. She exerted force on her feet to disperse the remaining force. Rumble. Behind him, the ground cracked under the impact of the impact. Drops of blood stained the ground. Facing two King Realm profound entrances alone, even someone as strong as the number 1 pavilion's northern region king couldn't hold on much longer. The wind blew, blowing the snow and sand. Qing Shuang was resting for the night. The northern region king, who was heavily injured, was filled with true yuan and brought out a waterfall of blood. Kill. Dong Xian Yuting roared and charged forward. Lightning roared and swallowed the woman in front of him. Let's stop. Right at this moment, a calm voice sounded from afar. Before the voice had finished speaking, a figure in plain clothes walked over from the battlefield. A sword soared through the sky and blocked the former's killing move with a bang. Dong Xian Yuting couldn't hide the shock in his eyes. Why was the 13th crown prince here? Behind them, Qing Shuang looked at the plainclothed figure in front of her. Shock also flashed through her eyes. Third brother, we've already exchanged pointers. Can we stop for now? Ning Chen said with a smile as he looked at the man in white who was walking over from the other side. Of course. Xianqing smiled and said, since 13th brother has spoken, how can I not give him face? Yuting, take Yufeng back. Yes, your highness. Dong Xian Yuting recovered from the shock and bowed respectfully. His figure flashed and came to the mountain in the distance. He helped the heavily injured Xian Yufeng up and left. Thank you, third brother. In the battlefield, Ning Chen looked at the white-robed man before him and bowed politely with a smile. Xianqing nodded and left without saying anything else. After the crisis was resolved, Ning Chen looked back at the heavily injured woman and said calmly, Lady Qing Shuang, can you still hold on? Yes. Qing Shuang suppressed her injuries and nodded. Thank you for saving me, your highness. You left my residence. Of course, I will let you go back alive. If I deny it, the master of the number 1 pavilion will blame it on me. Ning Chen said lightly and looked to the northwest. The journey to the number 1 pavilion is long. I still have matters to attend to in my residence, so I won't send you off. Be careful. After he finished speaking, Ning Chen directly turned around and left. He did not have the slightest intention of showing her any mercy. Behind him, Qing Shuang looked at the former's back and a complicated light flashed through her eyes. This 13th prince was indeed a strange person. Heavenly Devil Imperial City, 3rd Prince Residence. Xianqing and the others returned. In the palace, the atmosphere was so heavy that it was difficult to breathe. Dong Xian Yuting, Nan Xian Yang Yi, and Bei Xian Yao Shui stood in the palace with heavy hearts. No one thought that the mission would fail, and the operation would be exposed. Your Highness. Dong Xian Yuting raised his head and looked at the man in white in front of the throne. He asked in confusion. Why did you and the 13th prince appear there? In front of the throne, Xianqing's eyes flashed coldly. 13th prince sent a letter and invited me to go with him. Dong Xian Yuting was shocked. How could the 13th prince invite him? No one knew about their operation. How could the 13th prince know? No need to guess, Xianqing said coldly. My 13th brother's wisdom is far beyond everyone's imagination. It seems that he was just waiting for the right time. Your Highness, will the 13th prince take the opportunity to make things difficult for us now that the operation has been exposed? Nan Xianyang asked, voicing the worry in his heart. No, Xianqing denied. Since 13th prince invited me to go with him, he won't use this as an excuse. Yuting, you fought with that woman. Can you tell her origin? Dong Xian Yuting pondered for a long time and said with uncertainty, her cultivation method is strange. It doesn't seem like any race I've seen. Maybe. Dong Xian Yuting's expression changed slightly as he thought of a shocking possibility. Human race. Xianqing also guessed and said in a low voice. If that was the case, all the questions could be explained. Before the 13th prince was given the 9-king pearl, his power was unstable and the experts of the human race did not appear. Now that the 13th prince had the opportunity to inherit the throne, it was a rare opportunity for the human race in the primordial demon realm. It was reasonable for the experts of the human race to take the initiative to find him. Your Highness, should we use this as a breakthrough point to make things difficult for the 13th prince? Dong Xian Yuting asked. Wait. Xianqing looked at the 13th prince's residence in the distance and said, the 13th prince must have taken precautions. If we act rashly, we will fall into his trap. Today's matter is a lesson. In the 13th prince's residence, Ningchen seemed to feel the gaze from the 3rd prince's residence. He smiled and turned to enter the hall. In this game, every step was dangerous. Whoever made a wrong move would be doomed. This was not the inner realm. He had no scruples and could sacrifice anyone without hesitation. The ancient sages and great beings cut off their flesh to feed the eagles. He had not reached that level yet. Therefore, if he cut off his flesh, it could only be someone else's flesh. In the northwest of the primitive demon region, in front of the number 1 pavilion on Yangguan Peak, Qing Shuang walked over. The door opened and Qing Shuang walked in. Pavilion Master. Qing Shuang half knelt and greeted respectfully. Your injuries are not light. In the void, rays of light rose and a very young man walked out. However, the vicissitudes of life in the man's eyes were close to 1,000 years old. The current pavilion master of the number 1 pavilion, the absolute king under the night sky, the night master, Yi Tianqing. I was ambushed by the primitive demon region's Forxian royal family, and was injured. Fortunately, the 13th prince helped me out and I was able to return. Qing Shuang replied truthfully. The night master nodded. So that was the case. Pavilion master, the 13th prince rejected our goodwill. If we really want to move him, I'm afraid you will have to come personally, Qing Shuang said softly. Oh. The night master's eyes narrowed slightly. The 13th prince was not easy to win over. However, all great talents had their own pride, not to mention such a talented young man. All right, I'll make a trip there myself. The night master nodded and looked at the gradually darkening sky outside. Was night finally coming? Chapter 1174. In the number 1 pavilion under the heavens, night fell, and the cold moon shone down on the ground. The pavilion was filled with light as the Night Lord walked out. Boom, boom. The pavilion shook, and the door opened. A black-clothed figure walked out. He was cold and noble, and his aura was extraordinary. The Night Lord, the Lord of the Night that everyone feared, had returned after 100 years. He took a step forward, and the space twisted. The Night Lord's figure disappeared. The 13th prince's residence in the 3rd imperial city was brightly lit, making the entire residence as bright as day. Inside the palace, tea was boiling, and its fragrance filled the nose. In front, a plain-clothed young man was quietly brewing tea with a calm expression. Outside the palace, the space trembled, and the Night Lord appeared. He looked at the young man in the palace, not in a hurry to disturb him. The way of tea. It had been a long time since he had seen such a smooth way of tea. It wasn't easy for the human race to survive in the primal demon realm. How would they have the mood to study the way of tea? Many lost techniques could no longer be seen today. After a long time, a cup of tea was poured into the palace. It was clear and bright, and the fragrance of the tea was refreshing. Night Lord, please. Ningchen said calmly. Outside the palace, the Night Lord gently nodded. Thank you. Patting away the wind and frost on his knees, the Night Lord walked into the palace and sat down in front of the tea table. The tea was placed on the table, and its fragrance filled the air. Green tea leaves floated in the tea, long and slender. The Night Lord picked up the tea and smelled it. He took a sip, and after tasting it carefully, there was a sweet and bitter aftertaste that didn't dissipate for a long time. Good tea. The Night Lord had an appreciative expression. Your Highness's way of tea can be called a grandmaster. Truly extraordinary. I don't dare to call myself a grandmaster, Ningchen said calmly. The tea in the Crown Prince's residence is the best in the world. You don't need a highway of tea to make tea. In my 100 years of experience, only one person can be called a grandmaster in the way of tea. Unfortunately, she's already passed away. That's a pity. The Night Lord sighed. Someone that your highness praises must be a rare talent in the world. The word talented is too light. Ningchen picked up the teacup, took a sip, and silently said 2 words. Her existence was like the brightest shooting star, short and glorious. The only thing that could match her evaluation was only 5 words. The number 1 person in the world. At least, when she was alive, no one could deny it. Even those in the knowing destiny state were inferior. As the tea entered his throat, the aftertaste lingered. Ningchen put down the teacup in his hand, and his thoughts returned to the present. Was he getting old? Why did he keep thinking about the past recently? With a self-deprecating smile, Ningchen collected his thoughts and looked at the pavilion master of the number 1 pavilion in front of him. He said calmly, I'm sorry. I was reminded of something in the past and lost my composure. It's not a bad thing to have unforgettable memories. The Night Master did not mind. His eyes flashed with the vicissitudes of life as he said, 13th Prince, to tell you the truth, before I came here, I had my suspicions. However, after seeing your highness, my suspicions have all been dispelled. Oh. Hearing this, Ningchen narrowed his eyes and said, Does Night Lord mean that you can trust this Crown Prince now? If your highness says so, I won't deny it. The Night Patriarch raised his teacup and replied, Night Lord, you're really a person who trusts others easily. Ningchen smiled and said in an indifferent tone, Night Master, I admire you for being able to lead the human race to survive to this day. However, admiration is admiration and cooperation is cooperation. If the number 1 under heaven pavilion can bring me trouble instead of help, then I can only say sorry. Compared to the 100 races, as a human force, can't your highness trust the number 1 pavilion more? The Night Master asked. No, Ningchen denied. The 100 races have different intentions, but the human race is also fickle. I'd rather use the 100 races to do things than be bound by the so-called same race. In the end, not only will I be burdened, if I meet any disloyal people, I'll have to endure the disgust and get rid of them. It's troublesome. The Night Master's eyes narrowed. This 13th Prince's words were not unreasonable. If it were him, he would probably make the same choice. Since Night Lord has come personally today, I have something to say. Ningchen looked at the man in front of him and said calmly, Cooperating with the number 1 pavilion in the world will do more harm than good. Once the 2 demon emperors know that I have deep connections with the human race, all the help I receive today will immediately become a hindrance. Night Lord, do you understand? Hearing this, the Night Master fell silent. After a long time he said, I understand. Sorry to disturb you. With that, the Night Master put down his teacup and walked out of the hall. In front of the tea table, Ningchen looked at the former's back and said, Since the number 1 pavilion is an assassin organization, you must be better than anyone when it comes to taking money to buy lives. I just happen to have a business deal. I wonder if the number 1 pavilion in the world dares to accept it. Hearing this, the Night Master stopped and looked back at the young man in the hall. He said, There's no business that the number 1 pavilion doesn't dare to accept. Okay. Ningchen stood up and said calmly, I want the life of someone. In the West, it's enough to have 2 princes in the imperial city. I don't want that person to come back. Hearing the former's words, the Night Master's expression turned serious. This was a big business deal. This is the deposit. Ningchen raised his hand. From the turbulent spiritual energy, a small mountain of immortal jades appeared. The shocking amount of immortal jades left people dumbfounded. The Night Master's eyes narrowed. After a while he collected his thoughts and walked out of the hall. I trust your highness's reputation, so there's no need for a deposit. When the mission is completed, I will collect payment from your highness according to the standards of the world's number 1 pavilion. As soon as he finished speaking, the void in front of the hall shook. The Night Master walked into it and disappeared in an instant. After the Knight Master left, the hall regained its tranquility. Ningchen looked at the flickering fire in front of him, and sighed softly in his heart. It wasn't that he was unreasonable, but this world was heartless. If he had feelings, how could he fight against this heartless world? Outside the hall, the night was getting darker. The Crown Prince's residence was so quiet that almost no sound could be heard. Inside the hall, the figure who had never slept was meditating day and night as usual. His white hair was unusually dazzling. In the heaven beyond heaven, in the Reverence Moon ancient land, two swords reflected the sun and the moon. Her delicate hands danced as she shook both swords. Outside the battle, Qing Ning watched the battle quietly. Her expression was focused, and her gaze didn't move. In the battle, the blue sword light pressed on. The sword of initial heart predicted the enemy's advance. The flawless sword heart had no flaws. On the other side, the white robe was like lightning. His sword was so fast that it was hard to distinguish. An ordinary sword was better than a peerless divine weapon. Between the two, Iner, who looked like she was only 16 years old, had a dignified expression. She fully unleashed her cultivation. Phoenix divine flames coiled around her body. Heaven and earth accepted her fate. With the origin of the heavens and the body of the phoenix, Iner gathered the world's strongest inheritance. Her battle strength increased by leaps and bounds. She faced the two swords alone without the slightest fear. Boom! The sword and palm collided again. Heaven and earth moved and the aftermath shook. In the sacred ground, endless runes rose, blocking the impact of the battle. After the sword of initial heart, the sword of extreme speed swept over. It was fast, it was still fast. Iner calmed down and turned her palm. Heaven and earth's spiritual energy was compressed and faced the sword. The palm moved forward. The white robe flashed, and without moving his eyes, he appeared behind the girl again. At the same time, the sword of initial heart changed in a man's hand. Before the phoenix was summoned, she predicted the enemy's advance. Heavenly punishment. After one move was restrained, another one was launched. Iner shouted, and her body surged. Heaven and earth accepted her fate, and 10,000 lightning bolts descended. Rumble. A world-shaking vibration sounded. In the sea of lightning, the white robe flashed. Amidst the lightning, he was as calm as ever. On the other side, the purple cloud appeared in a man's hand. The two swords moved together, and the sword light cut through the wind and lightning. After one move, a man's figure once again pressed forward. The purple cloud disappeared, and the sword of initial heart rose again. In the void, the white robe flapped his sword wings. Absolute speed tore through space and time, and the sword reached the battlefield. Absolute strength. The pure heart, the fast sword. When the two worked together, even someone as strong as Iner, who had obtained the inheritance of the heavens and the phoenix, quickly fell into a disadvantage. It was difficult for her to display her full strength. Boom! The two swords shook the heavens. The moment the sword of initial heart suppressed the enemy, the ordinary sword soared through the sky and pierced towards the girl's heart. An inch in front of the heart, the ordinary sword retracted, and the battle stopped. In the battle, the two figures appeared. A man and Mu Qingxue looked at the girl in front of them without saying a word. Ina recovered from the shock. Her expression was gloomy, and she said, "I lost." This was already the third time. Every time, she couldn't last more than 10 moves. She had obtained the inheritance of the heavens and her master, but she still couldn't display her full strength. A man walked forward and patted the girl's head. She said softly, "You've improved. Don't worry." On the side, Mu Qingxue waved his hand and kept his sword. He turned and left. Talent and strength could never be equated. If they had the same strength and cultivation, her master would be able to stop everyone here. "You've worked hard," Qing Ning said calmly as they passed each other. "She did well, but it's still far from enough." Mu Qingxue said calmly. "Her strength should be far more than this. She obtained her master's phoenix origin, but the strength she can display is not even half of her master's." "Let's wait a little longer," Qing Ning sighed and said. "You also know that her master has suffered a lot to have such strength." Mu Qingxue fell silent. After a while, he nodded and said, "I know. A man and I will continue to train her until she can unleash all her potential." After saying this, Mu Qingxue didn't say anything else and continued to walk forward. Qing Ning retracted her gaze and looked at the girl in front of her. Her gaze became complicated. "Iner, you don't have much time left." At the same time, in the northwest of the primordial devil region, Yangguan Peak, the #1 pavilion under the heavens. The pavilion under the cold moon was surrounded by mist. In the east, the strongest person of the 4 profound realms was sitting quietly. In front of him, smoke rose from the incense burner, covering his face. Looking at Du Ying's sword, it was bone-chilling. His body was covered with lead, which made him even more charming. As the cold wind blew, the lonely lamp flickered, illuminating the cold body of a person. It was unknown which dynasty it was, but the black and white were lightly interspersed. The saint's golden scroll reflected the filth of the mortal world. The void moved, and the master of the night arrived. He looked at the swordsman in the mist for a long time without disturbing him. Behind the lonely lamp, the red brocade wiped the sword. It was as soft as water. On the sword, hundreds and thousands of years. Chapter 1175. At the western border of the primordial demon region, the cold moon shone on the green armor. White frost covered 1,000 miles, and the flames of war spread. The world was in chaos. The heavenly demon army stretched for 100 miles. Powerful demonic chi surged, and it was as heavy as a mountain. In the commander's tent, the heavenly demon crown prince sat quietly. He looked at the secret reports in front of him, and his eyes became more and more serious. Outside the tent, there were many green-armored soldiers standing quietly. The tent was tightly guarded by many guards. Not far from the commander's tent, there were 2 equally majestic tents on the left and right. The terrifying aura they emitted was shocking. In the camp, the heavenly demon army chose to avoid the 2 tents. Everyone knew the name of the group of 8. Even the demon army didn't want to offend them. At this moment, a man dressed in a silver-white official's robe walked over from afar. His robe was black and white, with red and red embroidery. In the man's hand was a black sword. It was as black as ink. The sword was sheathed, and its aura was restrained. The cold wind blew, and dust flew. The man's footsteps were neither fast nor slow. His aura was calm, and he arrived in the camp in an instant. However, when the man entered the camp, no one in the heavenly demon camp saw him. This strange scene was shocking. In the camp, the man stopped and looked at the 3 tents. After a while, he retracted his gaze and walked toward the commander's tent in the middle. In front of the commander's tent, the man approached step by step. Outside the tent, the green armor army didn't notice him. They were still on duty. In the commander's tent, Xianzhen looked at the secret report in his hand. After a long time, his body suddenly shook, and he looked at the man who had appeared out of nowhere. "Who are you?" Xianzhen's face darkened, and he said coldly, "Guxing Tian." The man said calmly, "I'm here to take your life." He had never heard of this name before, but it couldn't hide the killing intent in his words. Xianzhen stood up, and he was on guard. "If you want to call for help, then give up. When I came in, the space here was already sealed." Gu Xingtian raised his hand, and the ancient sword of Kuan Tian hummed. In an instant, the ancient sword was unsheathed, and the killing intent hidden in it exploded. "Please." The sword's invitation was not to be rejected. A peerless martial art was about to appear. Xianzhen focused and slammed his palm down. Under the table, a purple gold spear broke out of the seal. Its demonic aura shook the world. Now that the ceremony was over, the sword rippled as the ancient saint's celestial body moved. Kuan Tian slayed the devil child. The sword arrived, the spear moved, and the 2 weapons clashed. With a loud bang, sparks flew everywhere. The divine weapons advanced one after the other, seizing one's life. The sword light and spear light's momentum changed again. The power to break the sky and the sharpness to break the sea rolled up 10,000 layers of waves, and collided with each other. Hua! Blood splashed out and dyed his battle robe red. Xianzhen took several steps back. His hand that was holding the spear cracked. He was injured for the first time. Sky Demon's 7 transformations Royal Sky Dome. With a furious roar, the demonic figure rose from the ground with an indomitable aura. reappearing the might of an immemorial demon god. With the help of the demonic figure, the purple-gold divine spear's demonic aura soared into the sky. Xianzhen stepped forward and his spinning spear broke through the air. Gu Xingtian's expression did not change as the demonic aura closed in on him. The Kuan-Tian divine edge shone with a black radiance as the heavens and earth moved. Extreme darkness. The black radiance spread, and a huge starlight rose into the sky. The entire battle turned into a swamp, and it was difficult to move forward. The ancient sword and the demonic spear clashed for the second time. After a moment of stalemate, Xianzhen roared and his spinning spear advanced again. A huge force came, and Gu Xingtian took half a step back. He frowned and pointed his finger, forcing the former back. Your technique is not bad, but it's a pity that your attainment is not high enough. Xianzhen said indifferently without any emotion. Gu Xingtian's sword aura turned, and black waves rolled out. Endless killing intent filled every corner of the battle. With the killing intent approaching, Xianzhen made up his mind and shouted. The 9 king pearls in his body spun rapidly, and the demonic aura and the energy of the king pearls gathered together. The dark energy roared and surged, and the demonic aura reached its peak. In an instant, the 2 kings moved, and the sword and spear collided. With a groan, blood splattered in the aftermath of the collision. Xianzhen took a few steps back, and he was heavily injured. 10 steps away, Xianzhen's figure staggered and vomited a mouthful of blood, dyeing the ground red. It's time to end this. After the aftermath dissipated, Gu Xingtian walked out, holding the supreme sky in his hand. Sword radiance flickered, and killing intent burned. Just as the battle was about to end, Garuda, who was in the right tent of the heavenly demon camp, suddenly froze and looked at the commander's tent not far away. This feeling, there was an expert. Without hesitation, Garuda clenched his right hand, and an ancient demonic artifact appeared from his surging demonic aura. With the halberd in his hand, Garuda took a step forward and raised his true yuan again. The halberd was raised to the sky and slashed down. Boom! The halberd light broke through the air, and wherever it passed, the mountains moved. In front of the commander's tent, the green armor army couldn't dodge in time and exploded. On the other side of the commander's tent, Long Zhong sensed something and rushed out. When he saw the scene in front of him, he was shocked. A black spatial barrier appeared in the shattered commander's tent, blocking all auras, and making it impossible to see what was happening inside. Outside the commander's tent, Garuda stood with the demonic halberd in his hand. His demonic aura surged, domineering and ferocious. What is this? Long Zhong asked. A spatial dharma treasure, Garuda said coldly. Can you break it? Long Zhong asked. Yes. As he spoke, Garuda took a step forward and leaped up. The demonic aura of the sun-chasing divine halberd surged, and an earth-shattering power gathered continuously, shaking thousands of miles. In the distance, in the Holy Region camp, the 5 Holy Region Palace lords sensed something and looked at the heavenly demon camp in the east, puzzled. What happened in the heavenly demon army? Why did Garuda take action? Sarah, come with me, Luo Jia said solemnly. Sarah nodded and rushed toward the heavenly demon camp in a flash. In the commander's tent of the heavenly demon camp, the spatial dharma treasure sealed the world. After a huge battle, the surroundings were devastated. In front of Xianzhen, Gu Xingtian stepped forward and slashed down mercilessly. The black sword light split the sky and the sea. In this moment of crisis, Xianzhen's eyes flashed with determination. He exploded the imperial pearl, and his demonic aura surged, shattering the crown. Soaring demonic waves turned into dragons and turned into protective dragon chi that blocked the surroundings. The sword light fell, and the 2 forces collided. Arc! With a groan, blood spurted out like rain. Xianzhen, who had lost the imperial pearl, retreated again and again. He was in a miserable state. On the opposite side, the dragon chi rushed over. Gu Xingtian waved his sword to block, but the sword light shook violently, and he retreated a few steps. Dripping blood dyed the ancient sword red. Gu Xingtian frowned and looked at the crown prince in front of him. His eyes were cold. Exploding the imperial pearl? He had underestimated the crown prince's courage. Boom! At this moment, the sky shook violently, A huge amount of demonic aura pressed down, violently attacking the dark space. Ka! The sound of space cracking could be heard. A moment later, cracks crisscrossed in the sky, and traces of sunlight entered, illuminating the dark space. Gu Xingtian's expression changed slightly. He looked at the sky and squinted his eyes. They came so quickly. The group of 8 lived up to their reputation. Time was of the essence, and there was no time to waste. Gu Xingtian's expression was firm. He stepped on his sword, and killing intent surged. The final sword appeared and slashed at the crown prince in front of him. The sword pierced through Xianzhen's chest, and Kuan Tian pierced through his body. Then the dark space collapsed. This shocking scene was reflected in the eyes of the heavenly demon army. Your Highness. Long Zong's expression changed. His sharp claws tore through the air and grabbed at the swordsman in front of him. Gu Xingtian pulled out his sword, turned around, and met the attack head-on. With a boom, the two forces clashed, and the heavenly demon camp shook violently. On the other side, demonic aura pressed down. A figure flashed past, and the chasing sun divine halberd slashed down. The two forces attacked together. Gu Xingtian frowned again. He turned his steps, and his ancient sword reflected the moon. He dodged and counterattacked smoothly. In the blink of an eye, after several exchanges, a serious look flashed past the eyes of the three. They all knew what was going on. You go and save the crown prince. Leave this person to me. Garuda glanced at Xianzhen, who was heavily injured and on the verge of death, and said coldly. Then he flapped his wings and flew out. Gu Xingtian focused his attention and stepped forward as well. The sword and halberd clashed. In an instant, the sky changed color. The two peerless experts at the peak of the King Realm fought. Between their moves, a destructive aura spread out, destroying the surroundings. Outside the battle, Long Zhong's figure flashed past. He came to the side of the unconscious crown prince, and used his true yuan to check. After a while his expression changed. His heart meridians were destroyed. How could this be? Not far away, the battle was white-hot. The sword and halberd clashed, and killing intent filled the sky. The mission was completed. There was no need for a long battle. Gu Xingtian held back a lot of his moves, waiting for an opportunity to withdraw. Boom. After a few more moves, the sword and halberd stirred up sand. Seeing this, Gu Xingtian waved his sword and shook off the battle. He did not continue fighting and retreated. Garuda frowned. He spread his wings and wanted to give chase. Don't chase anymore. The crown prince can't hold on anymore. Not far away, Long Zhong said in a heavy tone. Garuda stopped and clenched his fists. After a while he released his hands and walked toward the crown prince. How troublesome. In front of the commander's tent, Xianzhen lay unconscious on the ground. His body was covered in blood, and the remaining sword qi in his chest was constantly devouring the demonic cultivator's life force. Even someone as strong as a king could not save the situation with his heart meridians destroyed. He could only die. Beside Xianzhen, Long Zhong spat out dragon breath and used his life force to protect the crown prince's last bit of life. Garuda, your movement technique is faster than mine. Please bring the crown prince back to the heavenly demon ancestral land. With the help of 2 demon emperors, the crown prince might have a chance of survival, Long Zhong said with a heavy expression. Garuda looked at the unconscious crown prince on the ground and said indifferently, sure. After that, Garuda raised his hand and grabbed Xianzhen. His wings flapped, and he flew away. Far away, in the void, the 2 Saint Regin Palace lords, Luojia and Shama, looked at what was happening in the heavenly demon camp. It seemed that the Saint Regin's chance had come. Heavenly Demon Imperial City, 13th Prince Residence. In front of a chessboard, a person held the black and white pieces. After an unknown period of time, the black pieces gradually lost. The game of driving the tiger to defeat the wolf gradually came to an end. In front of the chessboard, a white-clothed figure stood up and threw the pieces back. She turned and walked to the front of the royal palace. She looked toward the west with killing intent. The 3 sides had been in a stalemate for so long. Now that the stalemate had been broken, it was up to the 2 demon emperors to deal with it. Chapter 1176. In the primordial demon realm, the ancestral land of the heavenly demon clan. In the sky, a golden pung spread its wings and arrived from the west in the blink of an eye. In the deepest part of the ancestral land, the 8 Desolation Demon Emperor opened his eyes. His imperious aura surged wildly as a shocking aura swept across 10,000 miles. What's wrong? The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor sensed something and asked with a stern expression. Something happened to Xianzhen. The 8 Desolation Demon Emperor said. The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor's expression darkened as he looked into the distance. Garuda had returned. Not long after, a golden prung transformed into his human form and flew into the ancestral land of the heavenly demon clan. Greetings, demon emperors. Garuda bowed and said with an indifferent expression. The 8 Desolation Demon Emperor was startled when he saw Xianzhen beside Garuda. He took a step forward and arrived in front of the two in an instant. The terrifying aura coming at him was indescribable. Garuda subconsciously took half a step back and was on high alert. The 8 Desolation Demon Emperor ignored him. He looked at his severely injured and unconscious son with a dark expression. He raised his right hand and gathered his demonic aura. The 8 Desolation Demon Emperor unleashed his cultivation and poured a tremendous amount of energy into Xianzhen's body to prolong his life. What happened? The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor stepped forward and asked coldly as he looked at Garuda. An expert in the way of the sword tried to assassinate the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince was already severely injured when the dragon and I discovered it, Garuda said calmly. An expert in the way of the sword? The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor frowned and said. Who is it? Can you tell his identity and background? I can't, Garuda said indifferently. His moves are strange, and I've never seen his weapon before. I don't think he's from the royal family that I'm familiar with. The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor nodded and did not ask any further. There were many experts in the world. It would be difficult to find the culprit without some useful clues. We still need you to guard the western battlefield. You should go back first, the 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor said calmly. I'll take my leave. Garuda replied calmly. He then flapped his wings and flew away. The heavenly devil ancestral land was filled with devil chi. The 8 Desolation Devil Emperor was channeling his unparalleled devil arts to heal his son. With his heart and veins destroyed, Xianzhen had lost all of his vitality. The true yuan in his body was also gradually dissipating, and there was no way to save him. The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor stood quietly at the side, waiting for the result patiently. After a long time, the 8 Desolation Demon Emperor withdrew his hand. There was still no change in his heavy expression. How is it? The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor said sternly. Very bad. The 8 Desolation Demon Emperor said in a deep voice. His heart meridians have been severely damaged, and his life force has almost completely dissipated. If we want to save his life, we will need the help of a divine object. Divine object? The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor frowned and said. 9 Serenities has already consumed the only godly object in the primordial demon realm. It's too late to look for a godly herb that can bring someone back to life. There's one more thing. The 8 Desolation Demon Emperor looked in the direction of the 3 Monarchs city and said in a deep voice. The fortune of our tribe is comparable to any herb. The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor shuddered. His eyes flickered with disbelief. A moment later he collected his thoughts and said sternly. Those who are not the emperor of the demon race are not allowed to inherit the fortune of the demon race. Are you sure about this? You're basically announcing the return of the royal authority in advance. Why not? The 8 Desolation Demon Emperor said coldly. Our goal is to let Xianzhen inherit the royal authority of our tribe. It's just a matter of time. It's possible, but have you thought about the consequences? The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor said with a heavy expression. Even though Xianzhen is the crown prince of the royal family and has the right to inherit the royal authority, there are still 2 other crown princes in the royal family. Their reputation and status are on par with Xianzhen. If we use the fortune of the royal family now, the factions behind the 3rd and 13th princes will surely be displeased. The 4 royal families are eyeing us covetously. Who dares to act recklessly with you around? The 8 Desolation Demon Emperor looked at the 3rd royal city and said murderously, 7th royal brother, I've made up my mind. There's no need to persuade me any further. This is the only way to save Xianzhen. As his father, I can't just sit back and watch. The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor let out a sigh. It was not a wise move at all. He could almost see what was going to happen next. The chaos in the royal city was unavoidable. The 3rd royal city was shrouded in gloomy clouds. It had been gloomy for a few days. The atmosphere in the royal city was unusually tense. In the 3rd prince's palace, a secret report was sent from the western battlefield. Inside the palace, Xianqing was reading the report with a stern expression. The crown prince had been assassinated and was on the verge of dying? Your Highness, what happened? Beixian Yaoxue asked in confusion when he saw the change in Xianqing's expression. Xianqing handed the report to Beixian Yaoxue and said sternly, take a look at it yourself. Beixian Yaoxue went up and received the report. He was overjoyed at first, but his smile soon disappeared. He said in a deep voice, Your Highness, do you know who's behind it? In this world, the only person who wants the crown prince dead is me and the 13th prince. Xianqing said sternly, since I'm not the one behind it, the murderer must be the 13th prince. However, I don't understand how the 13th prince managed to recruit such an expert. The Heavenly Demon Camp has Garuda and Longzhong, 2 experts from the 8. It's not easy for them to severely injure Xianzhen without anyone knowing. Your Highness, do you still remember that human woman? Dongxian Yuting, who was beside Beixian Yaoxue, said, I suspect that the person behind it is also an expert from the human race. Xianqing narrowed his eyes when he heard this. The human race? Had the 13th prince really started working with the experts of the human race? He should know that it was not a wise choice. Once the truth was exposed, everything he had now would turn into bubbles and cease to exist. The 13th prince's foundation in the royal family is not as strong as the crown prince in you, Your Highness. In order to fight for the throne, it's not impossible for the 13th prince to take the risk and work with the human race. Beixian Yaoxue analyzed calmly. Your Highness, the assassination of the crown prince may be a good opportunity for us to overthrow the 13th prince. As long as we expose the fact that the 13th prince colluded with the human race, everyone will kick a man who is down. Once the 13th prince shows signs of losing his power, the assassination of the crown prince will most likely be attributed to the 13th prince. At that time, Your Highness just needs to fan the flames and the 13th prince will be accused of murdering his own people. The situation will be settled then. Xianqing fell silent and considered Beixian Yaoxue's suggestion seriously. At the same time, in the 13th prince's residence, a white-clothed figure stood quietly in front of the imperial palace. After learning about what happened in the western battlefield, she patiently waited for the 2 demon emperors' reaction. The number 1 pavilion's strength lived up to its reputation. It was not an ordinary expert who could assassinate the crown prince under the protection of Garuda and Longzhong. It was a pity that the crown prince did not die on the spot. With Xianzhen's injuries, unless the 2 demon emperors acted personally, he would definitely die. However, it was not easy to save someone whose heart meridians were destroyed, even for emperors. 13th prince, are you satisfied with the result? In the palace the void shook, and an illusory figure appeared and asked. Yes. In front of the palace, Ningchen nodded and said, I will send someone to deliver the reward. Night Lord, don't worry. I trust Your Highness's reputation, the Night Lord said calmly. In the void, the Night Sovereign's incarnation calmly said, Your Highness, can you now consider cooperating with me? Ningchen turned around and looked at the figure in the palace. He smiled and said, I will make a bet with the Night Lord. The crown prince may not die. Hearing this, the Night Lord frowned and said, The crown prince's heart meridians are destroyed and there is no cure. Why do you say that, Your Highness? Ningchen smiled. He turned around and looked at the surging clouds in the sky. He said calmly, It's just intuition. I've met countless opponents over the years, and I've seen many things that are beyond common sense. Even if the crown prince really comes back to life, I won't be too surprised. The Night Lord frowned, not understanding what Ningchen was talking about. Just as the various forces were watching, demonic clouds gathered in the sky above the three imperial city. An indescribably terrifying aura descended, shocking the world. It's here. In the 13th Prince's palace, Ningchen raised his head and looked at the sky. Above the 9 heavens, a towering figure appeared. Demonic chi surged around him, giving off a frightening pressure. It was as if 10,000 mountains were pressing down. The entire Sanhuang city began to shake violently. The appearance of the demon emperor shocked all the forces in the three imperial city. They all looked at the sky. Boom! Wind and thunder raged in the 9 heavens. Amidst the thunderbolts, the 8 desolation demonic emperor descended from the sky and stood in the void. The demonic aura around him continued to rise. The demon emperor's descent caused the sky above the three imperial city to be filled with a purple-black chi. It could be an azure dragon, a divine sparrow, or a great demon. The chi of a race was immeasurable. The chi of the demon emperor condensed under the demon emperor's aura. Everyone in the three imperial city was watching. No one knew what the 8 desolation demon emperor was going to do. In the 13th prince's palace, Ningchen looked at the sky, his eyes flickering. He was not unfamiliar with chi of heaven and earth. This kind of energy was difficult to use directly. However, when the chi of heaven and earth was condensed to a certain degree, the power it could unleash was unimaginable. If he guessed correctly, what the 8 desolation demon emperor was going to do next would shake the entire heavenly devil race. In the sky above the three imperial city, Xianzhen's body appeared in front of the 8 desolation demon emperor, covered in blood. Could it be? In the 3rd prince's palace, Xianqing was shocked. Impossible! Had the 8 desolation demon emperor gone crazy? Boom! In the sky, lightning bolts struck down one after another. The 8 desolation demon emperor roared as he raised his hand to guide the yuan qi. Demonic qi surged, and the purplish-black fate around him started to materialize and flow into Xianzhen's body. As the qi of the imperial clan entered his body, Xianzhen's aura immediately changed. An indescribable power erupted, as if a true dragon had descended. At this moment, Xianjuya walked out of the 9 Nether King's palace and looked at the sky coldly. Chapter 1177. In the heavenly devil imperial city, the 8 desolates descended. Endless fate took form, and dragons and tigers clashed, shocking the world. The 8 desolates' demon emperor's demonic aura filled the air. Under everyone's gaze, the heavenly fate around the crown prince surged and entered his body. This shocking action shook the world. Inside and outside the imperial city, the experts looked at the sky in shock. Your Highness, don't be rash. Beixian Yaoxue grabbed the furious crown prince and said anxiously, if you rush out now, it'll be the same as falling out with the 2 demon emperors. It's not worth it. Xianqing suppressed the impulse in his heart and looked at the sky, unable to hide his anger. The fate of the royal family wasn't something that could be used easily. The 8 desolates' demon emperor's action was undoubtedly announcing to the world his, and the 7 brilliance demon emperor's attitude. Boom! An emperor defied the heavens. Wind and thunder roared in the sky. Countless lightning bolts fell from the sky toward the crown prince who was about to reverse his life and death. 8 heavenly devil transformations stabilized the universe. The 8 desolates' demon emperor raised his hand and spread his demonic aura, forming a barrier in the sky to stop the lightning tribulation from descending. The lightning shook the universe and rumbled across the universe. The imperial city shook violently and was affected as well. In the sky, the fate of the royal family entered the crown prince's body. Dragon roars shook the sky around the crown prince, and a purple-black divine dragon coiled around him. In the 13th prince residence, Ningchen looked at the sky and frowned. The sign of an emperor? The crown prince's cultivation was already at the late-stage king realm. If he used the fate of the royal family to come back to life and enter the emperor realm, it would be very detrimental to his future plans. At the same time, in the 9 underworld king residence, Xianjuyo looked at the scene above the imperial city. Although he was dissatisfied, he didn't do anything to stop it. The fate of the royal family was extremely precious. If he interfered, It would dissipate. It would be a pity. Boom. In the sky above the imperial city, the heavenly tribulation descended once again. Immortal palaces appeared in the sky, and the ancient scenery reappeared in the world. In the immortal palaces, four generals appeared. Sabers, spears, swords, and halberds danced in the wind and clouds as they slashed down at the same time. The demonic barrier above the crown prince shattered, and the four immortal generals descended to eliminate the heaven-defying demons. Seeing this, the 8 Desolation Demon Emperor roared and raised his hands slightly. Violent demonic chi surged out, and 33 small worlds appeared at the same time to suppress the 4 immortal generals. The battle between the immortals and devils shook the starry sky. In the 33 small worlds, the 4 immortal generals worked together. The 4 divine artifacts split the heavens and the earth apart, shaking the heavens and reverberating in all directions as they forcefully split open the small worlds. Devil Sky Gaze, 8 Desolation Devil Seal. Seeing the terrifying might of the heavenly tribulation, the 8 Desolation Demonic Emperor used the demonic sky style for the first time. His hands moved, and demonic seals appeared in all directions, condensing the demonic chi in the surroundings into one. A bright light flashed. The seal of the absolute beginning and the 8 Desolation demonic seal appeared in the world. The terrifying pressure continued to spread. The sky above the imperial city turned into a heavenly demon world. Demonic shadows appeared on the huge demonic seal, holding all kinds of demonic weapons as they charged at the 4 immortal generals. In the battle between the immortals and devils, flames and smoke filled the sky. Immortal weapons and demonic weapons collided, and intense aftershocks spread out. Thousands of demonic shadows quickly disappeared. Among the scattered devils, a demonic halberd broke through the sky. One of the immortal generals couldn't react in time, and the demonic halberd pierced through his body. Bang! The immortal general's body exploded, and the heavenly might spread out rapidly. In the surroundings, hundreds of demonic shadows suffered the calamity and collapsed. The demonic seal showed its might, and the demonic shadows that had just disappeared appeared again. They were endless, and they kept attacking the remaining immortal generals. Bang! Another tremor was heard, and another immortal general died in battle. His body collapsed, and he disappeared from the world. With the help of the demonic Tao Sovereign, 10,000 devils killed the immortal generals. The 4 immortal generals disappeared one after another, and it didn't cause too much of a commotion. After the 4 immortal generals died in battle, the celestial palaces in the sky lit up again. A huge immortal shadow appeared, and with a stomp, the thousands of devils below were instantly shattered. The huge immortal spirit was more than 10,000 zhang tall, and a terrifying immortal might spread out. It actually surpassed the king realm, and was close to the sovereign realm. The 8 Desolation Devil Emperor's expression turned serious when the giant spirit divine general appeared. He took a step forward, and with a shocking tremor, a 10,000 zhang tall demonic figure appeared in the sky, confronting the immortal spirit. The 10,000 zhang tall immortal and devil clashed. In a contest of strength, no one was willing to admit defeat. Around the two of them, the aura of immortals and devils shook, and circles of ripples spread out. Everywhere they passed, the void was destroyed, and turned into nothingness. For a moment, the immortal and devil clashed. In the sky, the crown prince's body was surrounded by purple-black dragon chi, and his aura grew stronger and stronger. The meridians that were pierced through by Gu Xingtian's sword were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his meridians were reconstructed, and he was even stronger than before. Outside the imperial city, the various powers looked at the scene in the sky above the imperial city with different expressions. Some were excited, some were angry. However, no matter what their state of mind was, when the 8 Desolation Devil Emperor personally arrived, no one dared to stand out and oppose. In the northwest of the primitive devil region, on the faraway Yangguan Peak, the Night Sovereign's true body stood in the air, looking in the direction of the celestial devil imperial city with a serious expression. The 8 Desolation Devil Emperor had used the celestial devil clan's fortune to prolong the life of the crown prince. This action would undoubtedly cause the other 2 crown princes to be extremely displeased. The first demon emperor had yet to return. Now it was up to the ninth underworld demon emperor's attitude. Not far away, in the Dongxian territory, a man in a silver-white court robe and a black and white hat stood quietly, looking into the distance with a murderous intent. There had never been a survivor under Kuan Tian's sword, and this time would not be an exception. With Kuan Tian in hand, Gu Xingtian walked out of the Dongxian territory with his sword in hand, and walked towards the celestial devil imperial city. Now is not the time. On Yangguan Peak, the Night Sovereign spoke calmly. I know. Gu Xingtian replied indifferently. Without turning his head, he strode away. In the celestial devil imperial city, the demonic emperor fought against the heavens, and the 10,000 feet tall demonic body fought against the dueling divine general. The earth-shattering battle could be felt from tens of thousands of miles away. The emperor's power shook the 9 heavens, and the dueling divine general was invincible. The battle transcended time and space, and the heaven and earth collapsed, and everything within 10,000 miles turned into nothingness. Cracks appeared on the 8 Desolation Devil Emperor's body, and blood flowed out. He was injured for the first time. On the other hand, the dueling divine general's left arm was shattered by the demonic body's punch, and his power of law dissipated, disappearing into nothingness. In the fierce battle, the emperor's power suppressed the divine general, and after more than 10 moves, the 10,000 feet tall demonic body punched through the divine general's body, and demonic chi surged through his body, forcefully dispersing the dueling divine general. The divine general disappeared, and the 10,000 feet tall demonic body looked towards the sky, roaring angrily. His right fist gathered unparalleled demonic energy, and he punched towards the heavenly palace. They were shocked to see the comet-like fist energy blasting towards the sky. An indescribable demonic might crashed into the immortal palace. Above the 9 heavens, there was a short moment of silence. After an instant, a terrifying tremor resounded. Heaven and earth collapsed in response. A huge black hole appeared, crazily swallowing everything in the surroundings. The heavenly palace collapsed, and below, the 10,000 feet tall demonic body gradually dissipated. The 8 Desolation Devil Emperor stood in the sky, and his aura was much weaker than before. In front of him, around Xianzhen, after the divine dragon, the vermilion bird, the black tortoise, and the white tiger appeared one after another. Their shocking power was far beyond the king realm, and it was terrifying. The demonic chi had been accumulating for tens of thousands of years, and it had reached its peak. Today it used it to reverse life and death, and pulled Xianzhen, who was half a step away from death's door, back. The thumping heartbeat was so loud that it spread throughout the imperial city. Xianzhen's injuries were healed, and his meridians were stronger than before. The 4 deities formed by Qi roared, and after helping the crown prince heal, the Qi of the imperial family flowed into his body, overcoming the last obstacle before the sovereign realm. 8 Desolation, that's enough. At this moment, a majestic voice came from the 9 Serenities King's mansion, and it spread throughout the imperial city. Not enough. The 8 Desolation Devil Emperor's face darkened, and the sovereign Tao spread out, continuing to guide the Qi of the imperial family into Xianzhen's body, and he was ready to help him break through the sovereign realm. A man who is never content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. How sad. At this moment, a terrifying demonic aura shot into the sky from the 9 Serenities King's mansion, and Xianzhuyo appeared, standing in the sky. He raised his right hand and pointed at the sky. When Jiuyo made his move, the 4 deities formed by the Qi of the heavens and the earth immediately wailed, and they were pulled out of Xianzhen's body bit by bit. Jiuyo, since things have come to this, why don't you just stand by and wait for the 5th sovereign realm cultivator to appear? As he spoke, the 7 suns appeared, and they shattered the restraints around the 4 deities. The 7 luminaries demon emperor walked out from the raging demonic Qi, and he personally appeared to stop the peerless sovereign of the heavenly demons. It's not that easy to achieve the sovereign realm, Xianzhuyo said coldly. In the sky, Xianzhuyo said coldly, if you can prove your Tao with only the Qi of fate, then the primordial demon realm would be filled with sovereigns. How do you know Xianzhen can't do it if you don't try? Xianzhen's cultivation is the highest among the 13 princes and princesses. If he can't do it, then the other princes can't either, the 7 luminaries demon emperor said seriously. What if I don't allow it? Xianjuyo said coldly. 2 against 1. Jiuyo, what are your chances of winning? The 7 luminaries demon emperor said coldly. He raised his right hand, and the 7 suns moved together, appearing in the sky. At the same time, the 8 desolation devil emperor walked over, and the 33 small worlds spread out, and the powerful demonic aura shook the heavens and the earth. The 3 sovereigns faced each other, and the situation was extremely tense. A great battle was about to break out. Just as the battle of the 3 sovereigns was about to begin, clouds filled the sky and covered the sun. In the next moment, a force that had never been seen before exploded, and blood burst out around Xianjun. Blood rained down from the sky, and the world was dyed red. The shocking scene happened without any warning. Xianjun groaned in pain, and his body fell straight down. Xianjun, the 8 desolation devil emperor, was startled. He dashed forward and grabbed at Xianjun, who was falling from the sky. In the sky, the 7 luminaries demon emperor was also startled. He looked at the dark clouds in the sky. Where did that force come from? Above the 9 heavens, the clouds disappeared. They rose into the air and disappeared. In the 13th prince's residence, blood trickled down from the corner of Ning Chen's mouth silently. His body cracked, and the backlash hit his heart. Senior Immortal. Little gourd flew out, and it immediately bit its finger and fed its blood to Ning Chen. All right, I'm fine. Don't worry. Ning Chen patted Little Gourd's head and said tiredly. As expected, the heavenly talisman wasn't something he could use right now. Fortunately, Xianjun hadn't regained his consciousness yet. Otherwise, the backlash alone would have killed him. Chapter 1178. In the 3 royal cities, the emperors were about to prolong the life of the crown prince. However, something unexpected happened. Blood burst out of the crown prince's body, and he fell from the sky. The shocking scene shocked the world. A force from nowhere severely injured the heavenly demon crown prince, and his path to the emperor realm came to an abrupt halt. The 8 desolation demon emperor was furious. He dashed out and caught the falling Xianjun. He scanned the entire royal city with his divine sense, looking for the culprit. In the sky, Xianjuyo frowned as he watched the scene in front of him. He seemed to have figured out something. The 7 brilliance demon emperor looked up. When Xianjun was severely injured, a mysterious force seemed to have appeared in the clouds and disappeared in a flash. Who was it that attacked him secretly? What kind of force did they use? All kinds of questions flashed across the 7 brilliance demon emperor's mind. He had no idea what was going on. Seeing that Xianjun was severely injured again, Xianjuyo didn't attack again. His figure faded away as he returned to the 9 Serenities Palace. 8 Desolation, bring Xianjun back to the ancestral land. The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor said coldly. His figure merged into the sky and disappeared. Not far away, the 8 Desolation Demon Emperor withdrew his divine sense. He waved his hand and left with the severely injured Xianjun. In the sky above the royal city, the 3 demon emperors left one after another. The shattered space gradually recovered. Inside and outside the royal city, the forces withdrew their gazes. They couldn't hide the doubts in their hearts. Who was the person that attacked them? How could he severely injure the crown prince under the watch of the 3 demon emperors? In front of the royal palace in the 3rd prince's palace, Xianqing withdrew his thoughts and entered the palace. His expression was getting darker. If he wasn't mistaken, the person who attacked the crown prince was most likely the 13th prince. The heavenly talisman. Only the heavenly talisman could fool everyone and severely injure a late-stage emperor realm crown prince. He didn't expect the 13th prince to find Qi Huang Island and obtain the legendary heavenly talisman. Nurturing a tiger would only invite calamity. The only thing that made him feel slightly relieved was that the crown prince didn't just fail to reach the emperor realm. He also incurred the dissatisfaction of the neutral and opposition factions in the primordial demon domain. The crown prince would face a lot of obstacles if he wanted to become the emperor. This time, the 13th brother's actions had helped him a lot. Demonic energy surged within the heavenly devil ancestral land. The 7 luminaries Devil Emperor and 8 Desolation Devil Emperor had returned. Their auras were so oppressive that it was difficult to breathe. Before the 8 Desolation Demon Emperor, the Crown Prince's body was floating up and down. Most of his meridians were broken. Although the injury was not fatal, it had completely destroyed Xianzhen's hope of reaching the sovereign realm at the most critical moment. There are peak martial emperors or even half-martial dominators hiding in the royal city. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to inflict such serious injuries on Xianzhen right under our noses, the 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor said in a deep voice. I was too careless. The 8 Desolation Demon Emperor's expression was abnormally heavy as he coldly said, We only cared about guarding against the 9 Nether Abyss, but that rascal took advantage of the opportunity to succeed. That power was extremely concealed, and it didn't seem to be the cultivation method or secret technique of our heavenly demon clan. The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor nodded. He glanced in the direction of the 3 Martial Monarch City and said, Only those 2 are bold enough to attack me in front of me. It's not strange at all. The 8 Desolation Demon Emperor's expression turned cold. Send someone to investigate the unfamiliar faces in the Imperial City. If it was really done by those 2, there should be unfamiliar experts around them who shouldn't be here. That's fine too. The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor nodded and said, Even if we can't find the culprit, we should seize the opportunity to teach them a lesson. The 3 Martial Monarch City, the 13th Prince's Palace. Ningchen was still sitting inside the palace as usual. He was focusing on healing his injuries with the godly restriction. The backlash from the heavenly talisman was nothing to be scoffed at. If he failed to suppress his injuries in time, the consequences would be unpredictable once they erupted. Ningchen did not leave the palace for a day and a night. Inside the palace, demonic aura was surging vigorously to heal his injuries. The cracks on the 9 Emperor's orb that was severely damaged by the immortal slashing sword were becoming more obvious. It was clearly reaching its limit and could be destroyed at any time. On the second day, when the sun was setting, Ningchen opened his eyes in the palace. He quickly withdrew his demonic aura. The space on his shoulder shuddered as the little gourd appeared. It looked at Ningchen and asked with concern, Senior, are you all right? I'm fine now. Ningchen rose to his feet and smiled. He looked outside the palace. A long time had passed without him noticing. The backlash from the heavenly talisman was indeed shocking. How are you feeling? Are your injuries all right? At this moment, demonic aura surged in the palace as a dignified and domineering figure appeared. His voice was filled with concern. Ningchen came back to his senses and looked at the person before him. He bowed respectfully and said, Thank you for your concern, Master. I'm much better now. You're getting bolder. You even dare to attack in front of the 7 luminaries and 8 desolations. Aren't you afraid of being discovered? Xianzhuyo reprimanded softly. It was the 8 Desolations Demon Emperor, who first violated the ancestral teachings of the Heavenly Demon Clan, and touched the fate of the royal clan. What I did was to fight for an equal opportunity for myself. Ningchen said in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Do you really care about that position so much? The imperial path is not the only path you can take. Why let yourself sink into this filthy quagmire? Xianzhuyo sighed softly. Ningchen was silent and did not answer. He indeed did not care about this position. However, he did not want any of the heavenly demon crown princes to successfully obtain the fate of the heavenly demon clan. Rest well. The royal city will not be too peaceful in the coming days. Be careful. Xianzhuyo reminded him and did not stay any longer. He withdrew his demonic aura and disappeared. Ningchen bowed and sent him off. Report. At this moment, a black-robed figure appeared outside the palace and bowed respectfully. A secret report from the western battlefield. Ningchen's eyes narrowed when he heard this. He waved his hand and took the secret report from the former's hand. After reading it, demonic flames rose from his right hand and burned the report to ashes. You may leave. Yes. The black-robed figure accepted the order and disappeared from the crown prince's residence. Ningchen walked to the front of the imperial palace and looked at the western battlefield. His eyes flashed with seriousness. The Western Sacred Region had taken advantage of the absence of Garuda and Xianzhen to launch a sneak attack on the Heavenly Demon camp. The Dragon Clan had suffered heavy losses, and the Heavenly Demon army had lost half of their forces. They had retreated 3,000 miles in a day. The strength of the Western Sacred Region was much greater than that of the other 4 royal clans. If not for the fact that the Sacred Region only had one imperial powerhouse, the Western Sacred Region's combat strength could even compete with the Heavenly Demon royal clan. He had once taken a hit from Shama, the master of the 6th palace. That kind of unparalleled strength was not something an ordinary king realm powerhouse could possess. It was rumored that Luo Jia, the master of the 3rd palace, was as strong as the master of the 6th palace. He might even be slightly stronger. One could imagine how terrifying the Sacred Region's army would be with these two in command. Now that the Western Sacred Region was the main fighting force against the Heavenly Demon clan, the 3 imperial cities would definitely not sit by and watch the Western battlefield lose. He was very curious who the 2 demon emperors would send. Among the octet, Azura, Garuda, Dragon Clan and Gandharv had already appeared. Among them, Azura and Garuda were among the top 3 in terms of strength. Next, unless the Celestials made a move, the overall situation would not change much. The Celestials. All this time, no one seemed to have seen his true face. No one even knew whether he existed or not. How bold of him to use the name Celestial. Your Highness, there is someone outside the residence seeking an audience. At this moment, a guard quickly walked over and bowed respectfully. Who is it? Ningchen frowned and asked. A man in a strange court robe. He doesn't look like someone from the imperial city. The guard reported truthfully. Hearing this, a strange look flashed across Ningchen's eyes. He said, invite him in. Yes, Your Highness. The guard accepted the order and turned to leave. Not long after, a man in a silver-white court robe and a black and white hat walked into the residence. Even though he had concealed his terrifying aura, it was still terrifying. In the man's hand, there was an ancient black sword in its sheath. The blade was not visible, but the coldness was clearly felt. Ningchen looked at the man, and his expression gradually turned serious. A powerful swordsman. The number 1 Pavilion East Region Lord, Gu Xingtian, greets Your Highness. Gu Xingtian bowed and introduced himself. Nice to meet you. Ningchen returned the greeting and said calmly, May I know why the East Region Lord is here? I am the person in charge of the deal between Your Highness and the Night Lord. I am here to complete the unfinished task. Gu Xingtian replied. Ningchen narrowed his eyes and said, Now that the Crown Prince is in the Heavenly Demon ancestral land, how will the East Region Lord complete the task? Wait. Gu Xingtian said calmly, he can't hide there forever, right? Ningchen smiled and said, he can't stay in the Heavenly Demon ancestral land forever. However, you must have seen the situation in the Imperial City when you came. How can you ensure that you won't be found by the Imperial Army first? This is Your Highness's territory. I believe Your Highness has many ways to cover your tracks. Gu Xingtian was not worried at all. I can, but why should I take the risk? Ningchen said indifferently. I only have a deal with the number 1 pavilion to exchange money for my life. Other than that, we have no other dealings. Do you think I should take the risk to help you? Since it is a deal, I will not let Your Highness lose out. As long as Your Highness can help me cover my tracks, I will give Your Highness a chance to take my life before I kill the Crown Prince. Of course, the target cannot be more difficult than the Crown Prince. Gu Xingtian said calmly. Deal. Ningchen's attitude changed instantly. He smiled and said, You can stay in the Crown Prince's residence. There are many rooms in the backyard. You don't have to be polite. You can choose one yourself. I promise that no one will disturb your rest. Thank you. Gu Xingtian nodded and walked towards the backyard. Looking at the back of Gu Xingtian, Ningchen's mouth curved into a cold smile. Was this a buy one get one free? Gu Xingtian said that the target could not be more difficult than the Crown Prince. His meaning was obvious. In the Imperial City, the 2 Crown Princes were the most difficult to kill. Since Gu Xingtian was not willing to make a move on the other Crown Prince, he would find him an easier target. In the horizon, the sun had set, and the cold moon rose. Under the moonlight, the crown prince's residence was like the most terrifying and sinister hell. Every thought was merciless. Chapter 1179. There were thousands of altars in the northern continent. The sorcerer tribe had always been a mysterious royal family. Sorcery, venomous insects, skills, and martial arts were all superior to the other tribes. No one had dared to offend them for hundreds of thousands of years. At the center of the sorcerer tribe's sacred land, thousands of altars surrounded a huge altar that was 1,000 feet long and wide. Around the altar, smoke rose and flames soared into the sky. On the altar, the sorcerer tribe's holy maiden stood quietly in a white palace dress. She danced gracefully, stunning the world. Witch Tian Xian was born with a vision. Her body was one with the heavens. She was the most talented person in the sorcerer tribe for thousands of years. Even Emperor Go had praised her talent more than once. However, the flames of war had risen in the primordial demon territory. The world was going to be in chaos. In this chaotic world, no matter how talented one was, they would be useless without time to grow. Over the past year, the young people who had once been famous all over the world had retreated from the world. It was not because they were not talented enough, but because on the battlefield, one's talent did not matter. Only absolute strength was the only guarantee of survival. On the altar in the center, the dancing witch's radiance grew brighter and brighter. Wherever the radiance reached, the darkness was dispelled and endless light was brought to the world. As the witch danced on thousands of altars in the sacred land, purple fate rose into the sky and gathered toward the altar in the center from all directions. It was an earth-shattering sight. All the martial arts masters in the northern continent looked at the center of the sorcerer tribe's sacred land in shock. What had happened to the sorcerer tribe's fate? Was there going to be a new emperor in the sorcerer tribe? The changes in the sorcerer tribe were becoming more and more obvious. After the northern continent, the martial arts masters in the eastern, western, and central continents also felt the shocking changes in the distant north. They all looked into the distance to see what was going on. On the eastern continent, at the peak of Divine Capital Mountain, the master of Divine Capital, Yuluawu, stood quietly. He looked at the sorcerer tribe in the north with a strange expression. What was Emperor Go thinking? Was he going to hand over the throne now? Apart from the Celestial Demon clan, none of the 6 sovereign clans in the primordial demon realm had enough karmic luck to create a new sovereign. Only if the current sovereign paid the price of his own fruit of Tao, and the support of the sovereign clan's karmic luck to help the next successor break through the sovereign barrier, would there be a 50% chance of passing down the throne. However, why was Emperor Go in such a hurry to pass on the throne? Even if the heavenly lady of the sorcerer tribe had successfully broken through the barrier of the imperial path, she still needed time to stabilize her position. In this critical moment of the demon-slaying war, the combat power of every emperor was extremely important. Emperor Go's actions would not only weaken the strength of the alliance of the 5 great royal clans, it could also bring about a calamity to the sorcerer tribe. The celestial devil imperial family would never let go of this opportunity to severely injure the shaman tribe. Emperor Go, who had lost his Emperor Dao seat, and a witch who had just proven her Dao, would never be able to stop any celestial devil imperial family. In the west, at the peak of the sacred region, in front of the sun god statue, the Golden Lion clan's emperor opened his eyes. Blazing rays of light erupted like the blazing sun, bright and scorching, illuminating the sacred region. The 6 palace masters of the 12 saint palaces opened their eyes and gazed into the distance towards the north. Get ready for battle. The final battle is about to begin. The master of the sacred region's voice resounded throughout the 12 palaces. Yes. The 6 palace masters replied in unison. On the godly spiritual mountain of the Stone Clan, the Stone Emperor looked towards the north with a gloomy expression. What was the sorcerer tribe up to? Was Emperor Go forcing them to bring forward the final battle? While all the clans in the world were shocked by the change of the sorcerer tribe, in the deepest part of the celestial devil ancestral land in the primordial demon realm, 2 demon emperors opened their eyes. Their expressions were unusually cold. No wonder the sorcerer tribe agreed to make peace with us. It turns out that Emperor Go has already planned to pass on the throne. The 8 Desolation Demon Emperor said coldly, instigating the demon-slaying war, weakening the strength of the Celestial Devil clan, and seizing the opportunity to pass on the imperial path. That Emperor Go really has a good plan, the 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor said with a cold smile. Should we endure or attack? The 8 Desolation Demon Emperor said. They had signed a peace agreement with the sorcerer tribe. If they attacked now, they would be breaking the agreement. However, it would be worth it if they could seize the opportunity to completely destroy the sorcerer tribe. Let's wait and see. The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor said sternly. If Emperor Go really plans to pass on the throne, we will defeat them in one fell swoop. The 8 Desolation Demon Emperor nodded and withdrew his aura. He did not say anything else. In the 13th Prince's palace, the Emperor appeared in the royal palace. His aged face was filled with the marks of time. The Emperor of the Sorcerer tribe was nearing the end of his life. 13th Prince. The Emperor spoke in a tired tone. My mission is about to be completed. Your Highness, please don't forget your promise. Ningchen bowed and sighed in his heart. He said respectfully, Senior Emperor Go, don't worry. I will do my best to fulfill your wish. Go Huang gently nodded his head. His figure dissipated as he left the imperial palace. Almost at the same time, in the central altar of the sorcerer tribe's sacred ground, an endless amount of providence surged. The majestic energy shook the stars in the sky and shocked the deities in the 9 heavens. The sky was filled with light. The auspicious clouds formed by the purple providence rolled wildly, forming a huge whirlpool. Thousands of lightning bolts struck down from the whirlpool. This shocking scene appeared for the first time in 1,000 years. All the martial artists in the primordial demon realm looked over to witness the Emperor's Tao. Under the huge whirlpool formed by the Emperor's providence, a lady in a white palace dress danced to the moon. She was like a fairy from the moon palace. In the next moment, an extremely old figure walked out from the void. His peerless Emperor's aura shocked the mortal world. Emperor Go appeared and thousands of Daos prostrated. Even though he was nearing the end of his life and his blood chi had dried up, his Emperor's aura was still not to be blasphemed. When the time was right, Emperor Go raised his hand. Suddenly, an endless amount of energy gathered into the providence of the heavens and earth, helping Tian Xian to open the path to the Emperor's Tao. The Emperor's Tao entered Tian Xian's body. Dazzling light surrounded Tian Xian. A terrifying energy slowly awakened. It was powerful and strange, shocking the mortal world. Boom. At that moment, lightning bolts struck down from all sides of the central altar. In the lightning bolts, strange phenomena appeared. The celestial court, the underworld, and the ghost prison were all ancient worlds that had never been seen before. They all suppressed the Emperor's realm. On the central altar, Tian Xian shouted. Her slender hand moved the Emperor's providence. Purple bolts appeared in the sky and blocked the various worlds. The Emperor's Tao and the forces of the worlds collided. The shocking energy spread rapidly. In the sorcerer tribe's holy land, the altars could not withstand the aftershocks and collapsed one after another. In the void, the Emperor's Tao was passed down. Emperor Go's aura weakened rapidly. He looked older and older, as if he would die at any moment. Below, Tian Xian's aura became stronger and stronger. She could vaguely see the Emperor's Tao. At the critical moment, demonic clouds appeared in the sky. 33 small worlds appeared out of nowhere and attacked the Emperor of the sorcerer tribe in the void. Emperor Go was caught off guard. He could not dodge in time and forcibly blocked the attack. However, with a groan, he was dyed red and retreated a few steps. 8 Desolation Demonic Emperor, you betrayed me. 10 steps away, Emperor Go steadied himself and looked at the figure descending from the sky. He shouted angrily. Betrayal? I admit it. Betrayal? What do you mean? 8 Desolation Demonic Emperor said coldly. You will regret your choice today for the rest of your life. Emperor Go said. The anger on his face disappeared. The walking stick in his hand paused in the air. In an instant, the Emperor's aura exploded. A spent force. 8 Desolation Demonic Emperor snorted. He raised his right hand and layers of small worlds appeared. The Emperor's Tao collided with each other, and a terrifying impact spread out. In the sky above the sorcerer tribe, the void collapsed and the earth was overturned. It made people feel as if doomsday was coming. Seeing this, Go Huang leaped into the air and soared into the sky, flying towards the distant starry sky. Do you think you can escape? 8 Desolation Demonic Emperor said coldly. His body flashed, and he quickly chased after Emperor Go. At the end of the 9 heavens, 10,000 miles high in the sky, 2 emperors stood in the air. Their terrifying auras were far beyond any king realm cultivator. The end of the 4th level, the immortals of the mortal world, the existence that suppressed all laws. After tens of thousands of years, it was the first time they faced each other in life and death. Emperor Go's chi and blood had declined to the extreme. His emperor's Tao aura was chaotic. Although his life was coming to an end, the arrogance in his eyes did not decrease. I respect your glorious life. I will not hold back. Please. While speaking, 8 Desolation Demonic Emperor opened his hands, and the aura from the Desolation Demonic Emperor rose rapidly. Suddenly, the stars in the sky shook and fell. Emperor Go did not show any fear when the stars fell. Golden light rose from his body and shattered the stars that came close to him. The aftershocks shook the area, and in the blink of an eye, the 8 Desolation Devil Emperor had already arrived. His fists smashed down, and wherever his power reached, the shattered stars were all reduced to dust. Emperor Go turned sideways and grabbed 8 Desolation Demonic Emperor's arm. His walking stick smashed down. Boom. 8 Desolation Demonic Emperor saw this and punched out with his left fist. His terrifying physical strength collided with the divine weapon of the sorcerer tribe, and he was not at a disadvantage. Fengtian, slay the demons. After a moment of stalemate, Emperor Go shouted. Instantly, the lightning on his walking stick shone brightly and struck towards the demonic cultivator in front of him. In danger, 8 Desolation Demonic Emperor snorted. He crossed his hands and blocked the lightning. The demonic emperor's defense was not broken, and the sorcerer tribe's demon slayer thunder collided head-on. Amidst the violent tremors, 8 Desolation Demonic Emperor took half a step back, and used up all his remaining strength. Demonic aura rose again and he punched out. Bang! Emperor Go blocked with his walking stick, but he felt a huge force coming towards him. His arms were numb and his body flew out. His mouth was red. Emperor Go, you are old. Your chi and cultivation are not what it used to be. You have no chance of winning this battle. In the shattered void, 8 Desolation Demonic Emperor waved his hand to disperse the remaining strength. He looked at the severely injured Emperor Go and sneered. The heavens are unfair and the demons are in chaos. Even if I die, I will drag you down with me. As he spoke, Emperor Go's blood burst out from his body. Golden lightning surged and his terrifying aura showed signs of him returning to his peak. 8 Desolation Demonic Emperor frowned. She was still hiding such power. 8 changes of the Sky Demon, stabilize the universe. In order to prevent any unexpected changes, 8 Desolation Demonic Emperor did not want to delay any longer. He shouted and the demonic aura around him soared into the sky. The 8 changes of the Sky Demon appeared in the mortal world. When the Sky Demon's weapon appeared, Emperor Go's eyes shone brightly, and the lightning around him was pushed to the limit. The 9 changes of the Sky Demon, he had been waiting for this move. Chapter 1180. At the central altar of the sorcerer tribe's holy land, the sorceress proved her Tao. The 9 great worlds appeared at the same time. Qi Zhen was the emperor among the people. Purple qi spread for 30,000 miles around Tian Xine. Her slender hand condensed 10,000 years of the sorcerer race's providence, and she fought against the power of the great world that descended from the sky. At the same time, above the starry sky, the battle between the sovereigns was getting more and more intense. Emperor Go of the sorcerer race was covered in blood. He was at the end of his lifespan and his qi and blood had withered away. Only his fighting spirit had surpassed the limits of his physical body, and supported him to return to his peak. On the other side of the starry sky, a 10,000-meter tall demonic body appeared. The heavenly demon's 8 transformations and sovereign Dao martial arts shocked the heavens and the earth. A demonic image appeared in all directions. A terrifying power surged out, surpassing the power of heaven and earth. It forcefully shattered the surrounding starry sky and destroyed everything. I've been waiting for this moment. After a long time, an opportunity appeared in front of Emperor Go. With a shout, the emperor blood around Emperor Go started to burn rapidly. The dispersing blood mist dyed the stars red. Within the blood mist, golden lightning tore through space and time, and the ancient demon-slaying artifact reappeared. The wooden crutch shattered, and a 3-foot-long cold blade appeared. It was neither a sword nor a blade, but it had 4 sharp edges that surged with lightning. With the appearance of the divine weapon, Emperor Go's appearance also started to change rapidly. His decaying body was like a withered tree that had been rejuvenated, returning to the peak of his life. Her otherworldly appearance was somewhat similar to that of the current generation's witch, but she was a little sharper. The Empress revealed her true appearance. Her slender hand moved across the divine weapon, and the peerless divine weapon changed again. Amidst the surging golden thunderbolts, the winged godly spike appeared. It was more than 10 feet long and looked like the sharpest godly weapon in the world. With just a light buzz, the surrounding starry sky began to crack, unable to withstand the peerless sharpness. Emperor Go took a step forward, and his figure instantly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of the 10,000 Zhang demon. The winged godly spike pierced through the air, breaking through the devil chi and heading straight for the chest of the devil cultivator. At the same time, the giant fist of the 30,000-meter-tall devil body punched down. With the power to destroy the heavens and the earth, it shattered stars one after another and blasted toward the sorcerer tribe's royal ancestor. When the 2 sovereigns clashed, Go Huang's silhouette suddenly split into 2. One was real and the other was illusory. It was hard to tell which was the real one. The demonic cultivator was slightly startled. His fist momentum changed, and his demonic aura surged again, sweeping away 1,000 soldiers. In close combat, life and death could be decided in the blink of an eye. As the gigantic fist swept out, Go Huang's silhouette disappeared once again. The 2 of them merged into one, appearing in front of the chest of the devil cultivator. 9 Emperor God-destroying seal. Behind Emperor Go, a gigantic astral formation appeared. In the blink of an eye, the astral formation disappeared. The astral formation was infused with the power of the demon destroyer formation. Break. With a light shout, the winged god spike in Emperor Go's hand shot out with the power to slay demons and annihilate gods. Ear-piercing thunderous booms resounded through the starry space. In an instant, a golden beam of light streaked across the sky, directly piercing through the body of the winged god spike. Ugh! As the golden light entered his body, 8 Desolation Demon Emperor let out a painful groan as the demonic chi around him surged violently and dispersed in all directions. The sudden change shook the entire primordial demon realm. Everyone looked at the starry sky in shock. Seeing that the demon slayer technique was successful, Emperor Go raised his hand and grabbed the demon slayer weapon that flew back to him. The divine weapon danced in the air. Summoning the 9 heavens wind and thunder, he leaped into the air. Heavenly dragon breaks the city. The winged god spike danced in the sky as the lightning transformed into a golden dragon. Emperor Go's clothes fluttered in the wind as endless golden light gathered from all directions. The winged god dragon roared in the 9 heavens as it shot down from the sky. He had been preparing for a long time. In the starry sky, Emperor Go's body burned like a divine furnace. With earth-shattering power, he was like a meteor streaking across the sky, crashing into the winged god spike before him. Do you think it will be so easy? In the moment of crisis, a primitive power was awakened within the 8 Desolation Demon Emperor's body. In the next moment, a gigantic black seal appeared in front of the winged god spike and blocked the demon slayer weapon. As the divine weapons faced each other, the winged god spike clenched his fist and punched out. Emperor Go raised his hand and met the attack with a heavy palm. With a loud rumble, his body was pushed back 100 miles. Drops of blood dripped down and dyed his dress red. 100 miles away, the winged god spike steadied himself. Although it was only for a short moment, his beauty stunned everyone. On the altar at the center of the sorcerer tribe's sacred ground, Tian Xian looked at the battle in the starry sky with tears in his eyes. However, before the Emperor Dao realm, the 9 great worlds were insurmountable. It would be difficult for him to rush over to help in a short period of time. Far away in the primordial demon region, the 13th prince's residence, Ning Chenjing stood in front of the royal palace. He looked at the battle in the starry sky with a solemn expression. The result of this battle was crucial to his future plans. The most terrifying thing about the imperial family of the heavenly demonic tribe was the number of emperors they had. Now that demon emperor Koan Yi was trapped in the easternmost region, if the heavenly demonic tribe lost another demon emperor, they would lose the ability to dominate the world. At that time, the Demon Slayer War would start, and no one would be able to stop it. Therefore, Emperor Go could not be defeated easily. At the very least, he had to take one of the demon emperors down with him. The war was cruel, and he could not be soft-hearted. Emperor Go must have guessed his plan, but he still agreed to it because he knew that it was the only way to defeat the imperial family of the heavenly demonic tribe. In the ancestral land of the heavenly demonic tribe, the 7 Brilliance demon emperor stood in the air and looked at the starry sky with a cold gaze. Something was not right. With Emperor Go's current strength, it was impossible for him to injure Ba Huang to this extent. There must be something wrong. In the starry sky, when Ba Huang's life was in danger, the demon emperor's seal appeared and the emperor weapon that was connected with his life displayed its terrifying power. Cracks appeared on the winged godly spike, and it showed signs of breaking apart after one strike. In the fierce battle, Emperor Go was severely injured and his flame of life was getting weaker and weaker. On the opposite side, the demon emperor Ba Huang was also severely injured. Golden lightning surged in front of his chest, and the remaining demon slayer force continued to spread and devour the demon cultivator's heart. In the Battle of the Emperors, which was rarely seen in 1,000 years, the 2 emperors had pushed their cultivation to the limit. Their demon essence and shaman essence burned fiercely, and the blinding light split the starry sky into 2 and collided with each other. Up until now, Emperor Go's life force was almost depleted. Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. His final glory was so dazzling that it shocked everyone. Demon-destroying Azure Dragon Seal. Emperor Go's life force was about to be exhausted. His eyes flashed with determination, and he circulated his true chi. Blood splashed out from his 7 meridians and lightning soared into the sky. It was the last attack of his life. Looking back on his life, today was the most meaningful day of his life. The indiscriminate destruction of jade and common stone contained a majestic might. In the starry sky, a dragon's roar reverberated through the entire universe. Around Go Huang, fresh blood gushed out, transforming into a gigantic seal formation. The seal formation was activated, and an azure dragon flew out. Its body was over 10,000 zhang long. It was extremely terrifying. When the azure dragon appeared, Emperor Go's life force was quickly extinguished. His hair turned gray and his beautiful eyes gradually lost their luster. The demon emperor Ba Huang didn't dare to be careless. He shouted furiously and condensed his demon essence into his palms. He directly blocked the azure dragon that was descending from the sky. Rumbling sounds could be heard as the demon slayer azure dragon and the azure dragon collided in the starry sky. An earth-shattering explosion resounded. The azure dragon was destroyed and the demon slayer azure dragon's arms were also destroyed. The demon slayer azure dragon was forced to retreat a few steps. Blood splattered everywhere and dyed the starry sky red. Blood flowed down from Emperor Ba Huang's shoulders. It was extremely tragic. Suddenly, a golden light flew past. The winged god spike pierced through the air and pierced through the chest of the demon slayer. Emperor Ba Huang retreated again. He lowered his head and looked at the winged god spike that was halfway through his chest. He shouted and forcefully shattered the demon slayer saint weapon. The fragments of the saint weapon were gradually destroyed in the starry sky. The demon slayer battle was a failure. In the starry sky, Emperor Go looked at the heavily injured demon emperor. His dim eyes flashed. In the end, she still couldn't pull the demon emperor into the seamless realm. The time was up. Around Emperor Go's body, flames of the great Tao ignited. The raging flames gradually engulfed the demon emperor's body. Master. On the central altar of the demon slayer saint ground, Tian Xian's body trembled. His imperial fate rushed into the sky and forcefully shook off the suppression of the 9 great worlds. He took a step and rushed into the starry sky. In the starry sky, Emperor Ba Huang felt the powerful aura rapidly approaching from below. He frowned. Suppressing his heavy injuries, he didn't dare to stay any longer. His figure flashed and left the battlefield. Just as Emperor Ba Huang left, Tian Xian rushed over. His body was covered in a vast purple aura. The abnormally powerful aura shook the starry sky. Master. Tian Xian looked at his master, who was gradually turning into ashes. He couldn't hold back the tears in his eyes anymore. In the flames of the great Tao, Emperor Go's tired face revealed a gentle smile. He said softly, "From now on, you are the emperor of the Demon Slayer race. The future of the Demon Slayer race is in your hands." With that, Emperor Go's body was quickly engulfed by the flames of the great Tao. The demon emperor passed away and returned to the world. In the starry sky, Tian Xian personally witnessed Emperor Go pass away. His heart felt like it was being torn apart. His body trembled again and again. In the palace of the 13th prince in the 3rd imperial city, rays of light gathered. A beautiful illusory figure walked out. The last remnant of the demon emperor's will appeared. He looked at the plain-clothed young man in front of the palace and said apologetically, "Your Highness, I'm sorry. I went back on my words." In front of the palace, Ningchen turned around and looked at Emperor Go's remnant soul. He replied respectfully, "Senior Emperor Go has done his best. Leave the rest to me." Emperor Go nodded lightly and said, "Your Highness, I'm naturally relieved. Now that Tian Xian has proven her Tao and has the support of the 12 demon empresses, there's no need to worry too much. However, the strength of the demon clan is beyond imagination. If the Demon Slayer race is in trouble in the future, I hope that your Highness can lend a hand." Ningchen nodded and said calmly, "Senior Emperor Go, don't worry. I believe that with Miss Tian Xian's ability, she can definitely lead the Demon Slayer race to glory. As for Senior Emperor Go's worries, I'll keep them in mind. If the demon clan attacks, I won't sit by and do nothing. Then I can rest assured." With that, Emperor Go's body gradually turned illusory. Starlight scattered and he disappeared. "Farewell, Senior Emperor Go." Ningchen bowed and respectfully sent the Emperor of the Demon Slayer race off. In the demon ancestral land, demon qi surged. The severely injured 8 Desolation Demon Emperor walked back. His broken arms had yet to recover. In front of his chest, the law of the sovereign Tao spread out, preventing the demon body from regenerating. Seeing this, the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor stepped forward. He raised his hand and condensed yuan, infusing it into the Demon Emperor's body. In the end of the war between the Demon Slayer race, the Demon Slayer race was still stronger than the Demon Slayer race. The light was so weak. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.